His comment came after the Pentagon said 2 Venezuelan military aircraft flew near a Navy vessel. More at townhall.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-583-0141. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-583-0141. That's 800-583-0141. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
Artificial intelligence company Anthropic has agreed to pay $1.5 billion to settle a class action lawsuit by book authors who say the company illegally used their works to train its chatbot. The landmark settlement could mark a turning point in legal battles between AI companies and creative professionals who accuse them of copyright infringement. Christopher Scalia of the American Enterprise Institute is encouraging conservatives to embrace fiction reading, which is in decline in America.
Conservative men in particular just prefer nonfiction. Fiction just seems less serious. It seems frivolous. And, historically speaking, that hasn't been the case. And some of the greatest minds of Western civilization have expressed their ideas and crafted their art through the novel.
Scalia, who was interviewed on the Salem Radio Network, has written a book titled 13 Novels Conservatives Will Love But Probably Haven't Read. Townhall.com. Top WNBA star Caitlin Clark will miss the rest of the year because of a nagging groin injury.
Clark on Thursday shared a statement on social media saying, quote, "I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season." Clark added, quote, "Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling." She was injured late in a July 15th game against the Connecticut Sun and later sustained a bone bruise. Clark averaged 16.5 points, 8.8 assists, and 5 rebounds in her second WNBA season. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
From the basketball court to the football field, the NFL's second game of the season took place in Sao Paulo, Brazil last night. Justin Herbert threw for 3 touchdowns, leading the LA Chargers to a 27-21 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. It was the NFL's second game played in South America. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,000 annuities and summarized rates and benefits from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call now.
800-760-1845. 800-760-1845. 800-760-1845. That's 800-760-1845.
And welcome to the show. This is The Truth About Chicago Sports here on WRMN 1410 AM. It's another Fox Valley Sports Field Saturday as you're sitting here with your host Marcus Mack and Kyle Long, our board man and producer of the show. Well, executive producer is Matty Ice, the man himself, McNeil. But we are not joined by Brother Blake today. He's had to go. He's out of town taking care of business, and we're just holding the fort down, and we're going to keep this going. We are days away, 48 hours, Kyle, from Chicago Bear football. Football has already started. It was a Thursday night game, so the season has kicked off. And at this point now, it is all Bears, all go. I know we got a lot of fantasy owners out there. I'm a fantasy guy myself.
Me
so
too.
I'll be sitting and waiting to see how the finale finishes, because nothing's worse than you counting your chickens before the Monday Night Miracle hatches. And I have been a Monday Night Miracle winner and also victim. So do not get all excited on that Sunday night. Don't you rest until that final game is played on Monday. But we got a lot of sports to cover, Cal. A lot of sports. We got to talk Cubs as well. It ain't over, baby. There's right in the mix. But we're going to start right now with the Chicago Bears itself. The season is getting started. All of the what ifs are about to soon go out the window, and it's going to be now what we know. Meaning, we're going to stop talking about what if Braxton Jones can hold his own on the left side. What if the Bears pass rush come to play? What if we're gonna have a lot of this did or didn't happen the next time we hold this show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, the big elephant in the room that I think any sports pundit, any fan, including myself, is wondering is how is Caleb Williams going to look now in year 2, in the first year of Ben Johnson's offense. And I can't stress that enough, Cal, because I just think that that's something that is important. I know everybody wants to see it, big plays right away, big deep passes. We're all excited, right? The worst thing that could possibly happen is the Bears start the game and 3 and out. That's just deflating. Yeah, you want to see them get some first downs. You want to see, but at the same time, this is still his first year in this offense. Admittedly, Ben Johnson said he threw a lot at this kid to see what he could do and what he couldn't do. And he even said in the press conference this week, he even said that I'm not going to really know how to call the game until I see how Caleb operates, meaning how he deals with the rush, how he handles the plays coming from the huddle. Because see, that's a big part of this too. That a lot of people don't understand it. It's more than just hiking the football, dropping back. The preset motions are very key. And knowing how to get them set properly, how to make the adjustments, getting the call from the coach to relate to the rest of the players out there with you on the field. That's going to be a big part of it as well. So Caleb doesn't just have to have a sense and a worry, I guess, from a performance standpoint, but also a conductor.
Oh, yeah.
He's the guy that's going to be waving the wand, and the rest of the team is going to be following on the offensive side of the ball. So, yeah, is that number one concern? I think that's everybody. I mean, even, the big major pundit, but it's not my main concern. Caleb Williams is not my main concern. And we're going to break this down more and more as we really start to talk about, like I said, we're 48 hours knocking on the doorsteps from Chicago Bear football on Monday night. Game will be held here on WRMN 1410, as we are now the Fox Valley home of the Chicago Bears. Cal, is Caleb your biggest, what you're going to be watching the most, or are you going to be looking at other areas on the field?
I am going to watch him, but I don't feel as if he's my biggest concern. And going back to one thing you were talking about, the plays coming in and getting out of the huddle. I mean, if you look back at that preseason game with KC, I mean, he was getting the plays in, getting out of the huddle with like 18 to 15 seconds left on the play clock. And I feel like that was really big as far as, all right, he knows the play and how to call it. And then now they can actually be out there and have a little bit of time to scan the defense, to pick up if there's a blitz or the coverage and everything, when last season they were coming out of the huddle with, 6-7 seconds left. and you can't really get a good feel of what's going on when you got 5 seconds left before you have to hike the ball. So I saw that as a huge improvement just in that standpoint alone, to where he's understanding the verbiage coming in from the coach. He's able to then give it out to the team, and they're getting out of the huddle with 15 seconds for him and Dahlman and Joe Tooney and all of them to look around and be like, hey, there's the Will, there's the Mike, this is what's coming in. So I don't really, I'm not really worried about that too much. My biggest concerns are, how's the running game going to look? And how is that pass rush going to look? And I feel like those are going to be the two main things. It's like, if we could get that ball running and get the running game going for the play action pass, which is one of Ben Johnson's favorite things to do, and I think that would help Caleb out a lot more. But then having Montez Sweat be Montez Sweat and Dio, earning that money that he made, I feel like those are going to be the two biggest things. I mean, you're going against another rookie quarterback in a sense, and Dennis Allen should be gearing up with blitz packages and everything else to really give him a nice welcome, to the NFL.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that even though J.J. McCarthy, he was on an NFL team, he saw no live bullets at all last year. None. I mean, he got hurt, I think, before preseason even started.
I think he got hurt. Wasn't it I thought it was the very first preseason.
Was it the very first preseason game? He was done, and then he was done. So in terms of him having any real, experience of it all, he doesn't have that. But I will say this much: I will not be surprised if J.J. McCarthy plays with a lot of poise. Mm-hmm. And someone will say, well, Marcus, what are you talking about? Well, because the one thing, even though you don't play, if you get a chance to see it, if you get a chance to see how it operates, it just gives you that much more of an idea of what I need to do to get there. And the one amazing advantage he had last year was that he saw a guy that was a high draft pick, that was at one time highly touted. Everybody talked about him possibly being this really good quarterback in the NFL, and it didn't work out for Sam Darnold. And he had some rough days. He had some rough times with the Jets. He moved from there. I think he went to the Panthers after that. It didn't really work out there, and he was kind of wrote off, like, this guy's done. He's no good. And then he was able to find the right coaching, get his footing underneath him, and really allow his abilities and talents to kind of show the things that everybody kind of thought that he was capable of when he was drafted almost, I believe, 7-something years back. Mm-hmm. And so I think that what J.J. McCarthy got a chance to witness in that situation was not only basically, the way I look at it is that he got the good, the bad, and the ugly right there in that moment, sitting behind Sam Darnold. He got to see a guy that went through some of the most ugliest moments that you can go through as a quarterback, literally losing your starting job, being benched, being wrote off, and saying, hey, you're a bust. Mm-hmm. And being able to then come back, and then I guess the bad would be the bad, but then the ugly is just you being basically cast off to where, let's just be honest, he was brought to Minnesota to back up a rookie quarterback. Let's just keep that in mind. Sam Darnold was not brought to Minnesota to start.
No.
He was brought there to back up a rookie quarter. That's how low his career had got. And he was playing on a journeyman's contract, meaning it was a pay for play. Like, the only way you're going to get your next contract, you're going to have to ball out. So he literally was on a pay-for-play contract, and he was the backup quarterback. That's as ugly as it gets, man. Oh, yet, then all of a sudden, J.J. McCarthy got to see the good, where this guy got his shot, and when he got his shot, he did everything the right way, whereas opposed to probably early in his career, he did so many things wrong. J.J. McCarthy got to see all of the good things that were put together to help this guy become a successful quarterback and go out and get the bag now being signed with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, if Sam Darnoldson goes back to being Sam Darnoldson, a guy that struggled many years before, okay, you know what? I guess then that sucks for Seattle. But you know who it doesn't suck for? Doesn't suck for Sam Darnoldson because he got the bag.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And so I think that everybody thinking that J.J. McCarthy is going to come out here on a Monday night and the bright lights and it's going to be too much and Soldier Field and he's going to be overwhelmed. The only way that really plays and comes into fruition is that the Bears' defensive line is ferocious. And so I agree wholeheartedly with your assessment of concerns being the defensive line. And I love that you picked running back. I know a lot of people want to go to offensive line, left tackle. That's really not. I think that with the guys that they got up front, the three studs that they put in the middle, I think that that's going to bolster Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones on the edges. I think that they're going to benefit from having competent, high caliber play next to them and a cohesion that's going to start from the inside out to where now these guys are not just going to be sitting on an island play after play with nobody being able to help guide them and help show them like, hey, this is what's going on. Why don't you try this? Why don't your technique's not sound this way? I'm going to be able to come and move and chip and help you. I'm going to know how to shield my guy and be able to come in and give you just that one more second longer that you needed so that the ball could come out to where it needs to go. So, yeah, of course I'm worried about left tackle because it's still Braxton Jones. And if you've been watching this show, The Truth About Chicago Sports, I have not been no fan of Braxton Jones at all. Going back to last year, yeah, I've attacked him a couple times. But at the same time, he is a guy that's established. He is pretty much a veteran at this point. Oh, yeah. And he's someone that's gotten it done at a high level. So it's not like they're just throwing somebody off the trash heap in there. But when it comes to running back and running the football, I think that's my biggest concern, even more than defensive line. I am not sold on Ben Johnson believing that Swift is a number one running back. No. I think that he's dealing with it because this is where he came and it's kind of like, I think it's almost in a way too, we're all human, right? And you cut this, you literally went out and drafted another running back while he was on the team. People forget that they drafted Jamar Gibbs while he was still on the team. It wasn't like Swift was cut or something. He was on the team and they drafted Jamar Gibbs. That prompted Swift to ask for a trade. People forget, but see, this is the truth about Chicago sports, and I don't let people forget nothing. That prompted Swift to ask for a trade, and then he was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, okay, who then in return would turn around a few years later and upgrade the position with Saquon Barkley, who I believe that the Bears, whether they want to admit it or not, were all in trying to go for him. And when the price tag reached a certain point, they pulled out because they didn't want to allocate that much money to a running back.
Yeah, I can see that.
So they went with the bargain guy, DeAndre Swift. Now, this was before Ben Johnson was coach. Now Ben Johnson's the coach, and he comes in, and I got to imagine he's thinking, I got this guy again, And now if I cut this guy another time or I go out and what am I really saying to this guy, And so I'm pretty sure they probably had a mea culpa, a deep talk, and Swift is going to get his shot clearly because the Bears didn't do enough in the running back position, which disappoints me, Cal.
Oh, I remember we had that talk draft night. I was texting you all night about some of the picks that they were making and some of those players that were still on the board, And I'm gonna love and I hope that Luther Burton shines, man. But if we sacrifice a top level running back for another wide receiver when we already got two studs and we got two studs at tight end, Luther's gonna have to ball out. That's the only way it justifies. Luther's gonna have to ball out. And he's got to mature and not do stupid after the play penalties.
quickly. He's going to have to mature very quickly to justify why they passed on multiple high-level running backs. Now, here's the caveat of it. We don't know much about Cal Monangai.
No.
Your guy with your namesake, Brother Monangai. We don't know much about Monangai. I did what I saw in the preseason. He looks built like a house.
Yep.
He's sturdy. He's shown that he's got burst and some pop. But this is also putting a lot of heat on a guy that was drafted in the 7th round. If Monangai was this world beater, I don't think that he goes to the 7th round, in my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't find diamonds in the rough. We got Bachenko with the Chiefs. Bucky Irvin was found, I think, in the 4th round by the Buccaneers last year. Tom Brady is the greatest of all, right? Drafted in the 6th round. So it's not to say like, oh, that 7th round pick is a throw out the window. What I'm saying is that I will not put those type of expectations on him when he was not brought in as a blue chip player. So no. I'm not going to sit here and say he's got to tote the rock and do all this and that for the Bears, because that's not fair to Cal Monangai.
No, and I always looked at when they brought in Swift, I always thought of him as that change of pace back, not the everyday back or every down back. And I feel like that's what wore his time out with Detroit and Ben Johnson for him to get traded, because he brought in an every down back and then wanted to bring in. I feel like that's how you make Swift better, is by making him that change of pace back or that scat back that comes out. Mm-hmm. And like now you can throw him out as a wideout, or you bring him back in and you do these, draw plays where they're not expecting it and he comes and takes off. Where last season, you knew it's like, all right, Swift's getting the ball. And then you throw in Roschon and, he gets those concussions.
He just can't stay healthy.
He's not the same.
That guy, Roschon, there is a lot of potential. The problem is that I think Roschon is on his last leg, not literally, but as we speak in a kind of just hyperbole kind of sense of a way, that this is his last chance, because we got a new coaching staff that didn't draft you, and you were hurt last year. You were not able to be effective. You were hurt your rookie year. You were not able to be effective, because this is his 3rd year, right? Yeah, this is year 3. I'm almost certain of that.
He was the same year as Bijan Robinson. They both went to together. Yeah,
so this is year 3, because last year was year 2, and he ended up getting injured, and everybody actually had a lot of really like this could be a good year for him, and it didn't turn out that way at all, and it really ended up putting Swift kind of on the island, running back island by himself where there was really nobody else behind him to tote the rock.
Yep.
And so he's got to stay healthy, and if he doesn't, that's it. His time with the Bears is gonna be over.
Well, I was shocked that they only kept 3 running backs on that.
Me too. I was really surprised with Roschon Johnson's injury that they did not stick with Ian Willer on their roster. I didn't look at the practice squad, so I don't know if Ian made the practice squad.
He didn't get made to the practice squad, no.
So I kind of feel that that's a mistake in my opinion, because you don't have enough. In my opinion, you don't have enough at running back to say that, oh, we only need 3 guys. Because okay, Roschon gets hurt game 1, which is very possible with Roschon's injury history, and now you're looking at Swift and a rookie Monangai that was drafted in the 7th round. And what did I just say? That's completely unfair to put this much pressure, because here's the funny part about it. That much pressure is not being put on Luke Newman, who was drafted around before him. Luke Newman will probably not even see the field this year, but yet there's no expectations on Luke Newman. Ozzie Trapillo is probably going to get a pass. He was drafted after Luther Burden, and if that was the case, they could have had used that pick on a running back. So see, and I'm not trying to attack polls, Kyle. I'm not trying to attack polls. But at the same time, I'm questioning him when it comes to his offensive line decision, because time and time again, when it comes to the offensive line, he's failed. From Kareem Abdul-Ghazi being drafted last year and coming in injured and not being able to play and be effective to now this year, he's listed as a guard. He's listed as a guard. So the team is saying he's not good at tackle, what you drafted him at. That's a check mark against you. Now, if they can change him and rework him, okay, that's great. That's a testament to your coaching staff. But that says nothing to your drafting skills.
No.
Nothing to your drafting skills.
And I feel like they could have gotten Trapillo with the next pick that they used to get the linebacker from Maryland.
Thank you. They probably could have got Trapillo in the 4th round easily.
Yeah. I mean, I remember sitting there watching that, just being like, all right, this is the pick. This is the pick. This is your running back right here. And then it went tackle. Then it went linebacker. Then it just kept on going and going and going. And then finally the 7th round, it's like, okay, now we'll go get him.
And then the guy that you got, Zach Frey, he's not going to even play this year.
No.
Another negative check mark. And so now we're looking at already, right off the bat, we're looking at a rookie class where you drafted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You drafted 8 guys. And we're already looking at 2 of them that probably won't even see the field. Luke Newman and Zach Frazier. Unless there's massive injury, Luke Newman will not see the field. Zach Frazier's out. He's been already listed out for the season for personal reasons. And Ozzie Trapillo, let's be honest, if Braxton Jones comes into form and Darnell Wright is doing his job, Ozzie Trapillo won't see the field either, really.
Yep.
So that's 3 guys that you drafted out of those 8. That's only 5 draft picks that you're going to have on the field. To me, look, Poles has got to do more. He got an extension, and Ben Johnson, I always knew he was going to get a second coach. I knew that wholeheartedly, that when Eberflus was hired, I'm like, this guy is not the guy. And he's just a coach in waiting for their next coach. So now Ryan Poles has his real coach in place. And he's got to do everything right to make sure Ben Johnson has the tools he needs. Because here's what I know right here, Cal, and I'm going to tell you right now. Ryan Poles will go before Ben Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll talk about that more when we come back from break. Once again, this is The Truth About Chicago Sports here on WRMN 1410 AM. No call-ins today. You got your hosts Marcus Mack and Cal Long here bringing you nothing but the truth about Chicago sports on this Fox Valley Sports Field Saturday. When we come back, we're going to be talking more Chicago Bears. We've also got Chicago Cubs to talk about. They ain't dead, baby. The Cubs are keeping themselves in the fight. We got a lot of stuff to get to, so make sure you come back right after the break here on WRMN 1410 AM, Truth About Chicago Sports.
The new novel, titled DUI Jury Trial, is the true story of 2 lawyers who defend a truck driver who is charged with DUI. If he's convicted, this truck driver faces a lifetime disqualification of his commercial driver's license, which would prevent him from ever driving a truck again. This 3-year legal battle culminates in a courtroom showdown, which involves the testimony of a DUI expert witness. This book, DUI Jury Trial, is now available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com.
Does your car need a shine? At Britain's Touchless Car Wash, they make it quick, easy, and spotless every time. And they're open 24/7 for your convenience. Right now, get a free car wash just for joining their text club. Text BRITT to 30400 and enjoy a free car wash. Visit Britain's Touchless Car Wash at 1923 Larkin Avenue in Elgin or at 555 Willow in West Dundee. Britain's, caring for your car while caring for our community.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take Dayquil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Ugh, okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the Dayquil.
Undo your flu symptoms with Dayquil Intense Flu. Dayquil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
Dayquil Intense Flu, the daytime coughing, aching, fever, under your flu medicine. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to the show. This is the Truth About Chicago Sports here on WRMN 1410 AM. You're sitting with your host, Marcus, Mac, and Kyle Long, in today to bring you nothing but the truth. Kyle, you said you had something that you wanted to talk about and bring up with the Bears. Let's go ahead and get right into that.
Yeah, so one thing I was thinking about, actually, with Austin Booker being on the IR and not having him for till like week 6?
6, yep.
And that pass rush, needs a little bit of improvement. There's a guy sitting out there that's a little bit older, and I think you can get him with the cap that we have left over. Why isn't Zadarius Smith in a Bears uniform?
Ooh. Hey, you know what? He's been kind of like in playing this headhunter role the last couple seasons, because I know one year he was with Minnesota, then I think he was with the Raiders as well. And so it might even be a situation where he's kind of sitting back to himself saying, who can I join with to make that push, So, yeah. If I'm the Bears, I'm kicking every tire. And especially if that defensive line comes out flat against Minnesota, and like I said, against this young quarterback, that's going to be the worst possible. That's worst case scenario, because that's the one thing that's the proven remedy for any young quarterback. Rattle him.
Yep.
Get in his head. Make him feel the sting. And he's going to have to go, every time he's looking at the show, am I about to get hit? But if this guy's sitting back there and he's going 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, that's not going to be good. Minnesota still has a very potent offense. They have one of the best wide receivers in the game. Mm-hmm. And if you give Justin Jefferson more than 3 seconds to run around on that field, he is going to get open. I don't care if you had Deion Sanders guarding him, okay? He eventually will find a way. So, no, the remedy for this young quarterback is going to have to be pressure. And if they don't get that, to me, I'm still trying to let it go about Micah Parsons. And I know we dabbed into it last week. Me and Blake really were able to kind of, talk about it in detail in terms of that. It's only 2 games because at first it was kind of like you felt this gut punch, like, oh my goodness, really the Packers signed Micah Parsons, and then you kind of like you take a second to come back to form, and you go, well, we only got to play him 2 times out the year, It really doesn't, like I told Blake last week, it doesn't really become an issue unless you have to face this guy in the playoffs. Then that's when it's like, oh crap, the Packers have Micah Parsons.
But then you got to figure out after this physical, what kind of Micah Parsons do the Packers
What
have?
kind of Micah Parsons? He might need a new back. Yeah. Micah Parsons might need a backiotomy, okay? That's what nobody doesn't understand. So, is he going to play 17 games? That's to be determined. But I would have loved for him to have been in the Bears uniform rather than a Packer uniform. No, we're gonna need to see some, especially with, and that is the disappointing part with the Austin Booker aspect of it, because it did look like Austin Booker was starting to.
He was starting to come around.
He was really looking impressive. I mean, putting pressure on the quarterback, making plays. I was like, okay, we might have something brewing here. So him getting injured before the season even starts, that's a definite gut punch. And there's no way. No, go ahead.
When he was being drafted, they even said you have to give him a year or two, and then you'll see what he's going to be. Because I think did he come out early from the draft? I think he
came out early. He was still not an NFL size. He had to get to NFL size. He was in NFL shape, but he wasn't NFL size. So linemen were able to lay on him, wear him down, put him down to the turf. This year, he looked like he had a lot more punch. His swim looked a lot better. His up and under was really solid. He was starting to get that good hook move to be able to come inside the lineman to make plays. And so, I mean, but at the same time, we're not saying that, Austin Booker coming back in 6 weeks is going to transform this Bears defense. That's not what we're saying. No.
He had something that kind of made you feel like, okay, if Sweat is getting double teamed or they're focusing on him, you have this guy on top of putting maybe even Deo on the inside with Grady Jarrett for this guy to come around the corner and have that speed rusher,
yes.
And Sweat, I mean, he's good, but he doesn't have that speed rushing. He's a rusher, but I don't see that flash that you see with a healthy, Micah Parsons or,
he doesn't have that around the edge speed. He's got good technique. He's got a real solid bull rush, but in terms of having that elite around the edge speed to get around that lineman coming around the edge, he doesn't have that, which is why a guy like Sweat is more impactful when the pocket is getting collapsed from the middle. See, the thing that a lot of people don't understand, and this goes back to even Buddy Ryan's day. Buddy Ryan said that the real linchpin in that defense was Dan Hampton. Now, Dan played outside, but what people don't know is that Dan played a lot of inside as well. He would switch and go on the inside a lot, and when he did that, it allowed that pocket to collapse. That allowed Richard Dent to come around that edge and make those plays. That allowed those linebackers, when they were coming on the blitz, to come in and grab and get the quarterback. If you can collapse the middle of the pocket, it is way more impactful than the edge. It is why. God, and I'm blanking on my, and I don't know why, because it totally beat me up. But Donald from what he played for the Chargers. I'm sorry, no, the Rams. Played for the Rams, the defensive tackle, Aaron Donald. They retired. Yeah. That's why he was way more feared than Myles Garrett.
Yep.
He was. I mean, Myles Garrett is a nightmare. But when people came to play the Rams, and that before that man retired, they were frightened of him, because when that middle of the pocket gets collapsed, now the edges are all over you. He doesn't even have to get the sack. All he's got to do is get that center back into the quarterback's chest. And That was Tom Brady's biggest weakness. It wasn't around the edges. Everybody thought that they needed a speed. Tom could beat that guy. Tom was going to get the ball out. He saw that guy coming around the edge, 1001, 1002, balls out before that guy could ever touch him. It was when the rush came right up the middle, he couldn't handle it. That's just about any quarterback in the league in this world. If that pocket collapses in the middle, you're in trouble. That everybody wants to say, oh, Caleb held onto the ball, and yeah, he did sometimes. But guess what? When your pocket collapses from the middle, you're running for your life. You're holding onto the ball, trying to make something out of nothing because you know you're stuck.
Oh, yeah.
That ball has to start there.
If your center gets pushed back into you, you're already done. Or
you're already done.
Or if he's sitting on the ground, there was a few times that happened too.
You're done. Yep. You're done. So I think that this is really going to come down to how Grady Jarrett, Javon Dexter, Shamar Turner, and the juggernaut Andrew Billings performs on the inside. And I do like the versatility of Dio because that versatility would come into play with someone like Austin Booker, where you could almost create this speed lineup of rushers where you got Sweat, Austin's on the outside, and then on the inside you got Javon Dexter and Dio. That's a lot of speed and a lot of athleticism along that line when you do it that way. Yep. But now, because of that injury, that takes away. So what we're going to need to see now is big play from those four dudes. Grady Jarrett's going to have to be the Grady Jarrett that he was in Atlanta for his 10 years there and then some. Javon Dexter is going to have to ascend to the Pro Bowl player that we believe is there. I believe that this is Javon Dexter's senior's year.
Yeah.
To really explode onto the scene. And then we got
you have Billings just taking up all the space that he can because he's massive.
And and Billings is definitely great against the run. The Bears' run defense was not the same when he got hurt last year. That was a proven fact. So against the run, Billings is going to be huge. The wild card is going to be Shamar Turner. Mm-hmm. He was drafted in the second round. So that's, you can't give, people have to understand, the first and second rounds are not passes. You have to have expectations. Like I told Blake, it's the top 100. It's not the top 32.
Yep.
There's only 32 teams in the league. There's a top 100 board. That means that you get to the third round before you start talking outside of the top 100. Top 100 players that are listed, you usually should get some impact from those guys.
Oh,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, especially being a defensive lineman in the SEC. And that's one thing. I mean, I don't care about what school you played at, even if it's Vanderbilt. You were in the SEC. You were playing against probably, I'll say, the best college talent in football.
Elite.
And I mean, those are NFL teams that are being played, especially with NIL now. But that's a whole nother thing. But no,
that's the truth though, Cal. It's the truth about Chicago sports. And with that with that NIL money now, these teams now, these top teams, Ohio State, Oregon, LSU, they're breeding grounds for the NFL now.
Yep. I know. And that's the crazy thing. But with where he came from, it should be an immediate impact. Or, be like, well, if you have a deep defensive line, this is where you learn from Grady Jarrett. This is where you learn from Andrew Billings. But then at the same time, now you need to outplay them and let them be the mentors to your stardom. That's how I look at it. At least when you bring in these kind of veterans in these positions where they drafted people, that's where it becomes more of, now I'm mentoring you to be that guy, and then, you draft Luther Burden, and we talked about this before. I think this is a wake-up call for DJ Moore.
Yes.
This is hey man, we got our potential, what we want to, mold into our Amon-Ra, because he'll block, he'll do this, he'll come out of the backfield. So now it's like, hey man, we need you to be that guy that is throw the ball up, I'll get it. Or, hey, you throw me a 5-yard pass, I'm going to get 12 yards. And now the pieces are there with the Bears. It's just they all need to come together, and they just all need to go.
What
and,
you know,
and bring in Zadarius Smith because he had more sacks than the whole Bears team did last year.
Exactly. You know, you got to kick every tire, and I love that you brought up the DJ Moore aspect, because see, here's the thing. Here's the thing that we got to, and people have to understand that. Man, look, it is real. It is a business, and when a new boss comes in, you're definitely looking over your shoulder, especially when the way you acted with the old boss was there. DJ Moore got paid last year. DJ Moore pouted because they traded Justin Fields. DJ Moore pouted because he soured on Eberflus. DJ Moore pouted because Caleb wasn't getting him the ball enough the way he wanted it for his numbers. Because remember, he had put up with the biggest season in his career the year before with Justin Fields throwing the ball. So now a new staff comes in, and remember, they talked to him already. He mentioned it, that Ben Johnson said something to him about his body language. Ben Johnson wouldn't have said that if that wasn't on Ben Johnson's mind from the moment he came through the door. Okay? Yeah. So DJ Moore was signed with another coaching regime. Another coaching regime believed in him. Now, sure, Poles was the GM. Sure, Poles is still the GM. Sure, Ryan Poles believes in DJ Moore. But Ryan Poles' job is to support what the head coach wants. That's the reason why we don't have Roquan Smith on the team. It wasn't because Ryan Poles didn't want to sign him. It's because Eberflus was the head coach, said, I don't need him on this team. You don't need to allocate that money because he is not the focal point of my defense like that. So that's why they went that route. Coaching does have a say in the roster build. Don't ever think for 1 second they don't. Why wouldn't they? They're the ones that are coaching the team. Of course, they're going to be like, hey, I really, really think I need this to work. Now, it's on Poles to weigh it all in and really how much of the coach, coaches say, do I go with as opposed to my own feelings? But they have to, the two are literally married to one another.
Oh, yeah.
And so with that being said, Luther Burden is not drafted if Ben Johnson believes that DJ Moore is this all-world wide receiver. Because remember, they already had Olamide Zaccheaus. So they wasn't like they were suffering where they had to get a third wideout. And Olamide had, they said, one of the best camps out of any Bear. So he came in ready to work before you drafted this kid, Luther Burden, and you still drafted him in the second round. You darn right. That's a matches and a shot fired to DJ Moore.
Yeah. And you look at the way Zaccheaus has been playing too.
Yeah, you're darn right that's a shot. And guess what? You darn right it was a shot to Cole Kmet that Colston Loveland was drafted. Don't think for 1 second that Ben Johnson believed that this was his guy at tight end if he goes and turns around and drafts a kid, his first draft pick. In the first one, the first draft pick that this guy's ever got with the Bears. In first one, and he's over here pumping, jumping down with Poles selected, which means to tell me that he was wholeheartedly a Ben Johnson pick. Ben Johnson doesn't ask for this guy. If he believes in Cole, we took out what they did to Swift in Detroit. The same thing. The writing's on the wall. Produce Cole, or guess we got your replacement.
Yep. Oh yeah. And if you look at it, you talk about with Kyle Monungai in the 7th round. I'm looking already at kind of what the next year could hold up, and you got Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame. Another thing where it's hey DeAndre. Look at what else is in college football right now with some of these running backs. And as soon as Notre Dame figures out that they need to feed Jeremiah Love the ball more, it's just going to keep going up and up and up. I mean, and that's a guy I'd like to see in a Bears uniform too.
I love that. I would love that. And don't think that that's not possible.
No.
I think that he's going to have a good career, but I think that the Raiders reached on Ashton. I really do. And depending on how it works, now if Ashton comes out and he lights up the league, then you might see Jeremiah go as high as Ashton. But if Ashton is just, like all the rest of the running backs in the draft, doesn't separate himself from Omari Hampton and Scatterbo and those guys to where just this big noticeable difference, then more than likely Jeremiah Love, regardless of it, because I don't believe the Bears are going to finish with the top 10 picks this year. I think they're going to be a better team than that. So I would want a little bit of luck for Jeremiah Love to fall if the Bears are picking in the teens or in the 20s if they had a really good season. Then I would love for it to kind of play, because make no mistake, the Bears are going to be in the Bears are in line for a running back next year in the draft. That's a no-brainer. If there's ever a no-brainer, the next year in the draft, whether it's the second round, third round, if they have a late first round pick, however it plays out, the Bears are drafting a running back, and more than likely they're drafting a left tackle. Because the one thing that Ryan Poles can't do again is going to another draft and not address this left tackle position properly. Not some wish, not a guy from Princeton that's injured, not a guy that played right tackle his whole college career that you're hoping can switch over, not an unsigned free agent that you're hoping maybe can pop. No, an actual stud. Just like the Kansas City Chiefs went and did. They said, hey, we need a left tackle. They went, they identified, they drafted the kid in the first round, and now they're going. That you gotta address these things. And so the Bears did not address left tackle and running back properly in this year's draft. So make no mistake about it, no matter how the record plays out, even if they're a playoff team, you're crazy if you don't go back to the well on those two positions.
Oh yeah. Yep, and I feel like, they solidified a good amount of positions. I feel like for wideouts right now, they're good. You can pump the brakes on bringing somebody else in on there. They're going to have to start working on the secondary again, and they're going to have to start working on the linebackers.
The linebackers, that is the position that's key. And I don't know where did we get to a point where linebackers didn't matter in Chicago?
Yep.
But we've been that way now since Urlacher and Briggs retired. It's just like, oh, okay, you can go and get these guys, that, hey, he was somewhat maybe somewhere else, or, hey, we're going to kick the tires on this guy and he's okay. He's good. Since when did we not have dominant linebackers on? And I'm calling, because Tremaine Edwards was paid, and TJ Edwards has shown up. TJ Edwards has shown up and has honored his contract and has been a stud. Remember, they brought the two linebackers in to replace the one. The Roquan Smith's contract, they said they didn't want to pay, and they justified it by saying, well, we could sign two high-level linebackers. Well, there's only been one guy that's really been playing at a real high level. Tremaine Edmonds, good locker room guy, great talking to the media. On film play on the field, average. Yep. And we need better than average out of you, Tremaine Edmonds.
Oh yeah, and I think even in the bad times that the Bears had, TJ Edwards was still one of those guys that didn't quit, and he was still going, and he was still, that was probably I was happier that he was signed over Tremaine Edmonds actually when they both came in. I'm like, TJ Edwards, I'm like, all right, good, you got a guy who knows what he's doing. But yeah, they haven't addressed it in a while because it's only been undrafted free agents that have came across. What was I can't remember his name. The undrafted free agent from Wisconsin that we had.
Sanborn?
Yes.
Jack Sanborn? Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, we kick these tires around and, oh, look, there's a linebacker. We're treating the linebacker position kind of like they treated the running back position in a way. By just kind of but not really having the guy, a stud. And it's been like that with both those positions for some time. The Bears haven't had that guy at running back since, I feel like, since Matt Forte. And that seems like eons ago, right? But I feel like that's the last guy that they had that was a real bona fide, dude. I mean, David Montgomery had the tools, but unfortunately he didn't have the team around him. So that's why I don't put Montgomery in it, because let's be honest, Montgomery's better years are happening right now in Detroit, and that's just a fact. So yeah, those two positions, the Bears have really got to take a look at themselves in the mirror, because at one time those were the staple of the Chicago Bears. Gale Sayers, Walter Payton, Dick Butkus, Mike Singletary, Brian Urlacher, Matt Forte. The list goes on of these top-level running backs and linebackers on the Bears, and that has been devoid. And I don't think that is something to be scoffed about, because when the Bears have had their best success is when those positions have had great players. And since those positions have been devoid of great players, the Bears have had tremendous struggles. We're going to talk more Chicago Bears when we get back here on The Truth About Chicago Sports here on WRMN 1410. Make sure to tune back in right after this break. You don't want to miss what we got to talk about. We still got more Chicago Bears to break down as they get ready for their game on Monday night. We got 2 days away from Chicago Bears, and then we're going to talk to Chicago Cubs, because they're right there knocking on the playoffs. Playoffs! That's right, playoffs. Here on WRMN 1410 AM, Truth About Chicago Sports. We'll be right back.
For nearly 50 years, the DuPage Senior Citizens Council and Kane Senior Council have been dedicated to serving seniors in DuPage and Kane counties. Established in 1975, the DuPage Senior Citizens Council is a volunteer-driven 501c3 non-for-profit organization committed to helping older adults live with dignity. From providing nutritious meals to offering support services, the Kane Senior Council is there every step of the way. With programs designed to enhance independence and quality of life, they're proud to make a difference in the lives of their senior neighbors. To learn more or to volunteer, visit them at 418B Airport Road in Elgin, or head to their website at caneseniorcouncil.org. Give them a call at 630-338-0999. That's 630-338-0999. That's the Kane Senior Council, caring for seniors because they deserve to live with dignity and respect. Visit caneseniorcouncil.org or call 630-338-0999 today.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410. Elgin time, 11 o'clock.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Greg Clugston in Washington. Israel is calling on famine-stricken Gaza City residents to leave as it expands its military targets.
Despite the bombardment, many Palestinians say they won't leave. Aid groups warn a large-scale evacuation could worsen the humanitarian crisis, which includes famine. In Jerusalem, widespread protests among Israelis who fear the offensive will endanger hostages. There are 48, 20 of them believed by Israel to be alive. I'm Julie Walker.
U.S. immigration officials carried out a massive raid at a Hyundai factory in Georgia, detaining 475 people.
Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent in charge, Stephen Schrank, said that the majority of the people detained were from South Korea.
This operation underscores our commitment to protecting jobs for Georgians and Americans, ensuring a level playing field for businesses that comply with the law.
He said the detained workers were part of a network of subcontractors and that the employees worked for a variety of different companies on the site. Hyundai Motor Group is South Korea's biggest automaker and began making electric vehicles a year ago at the $7.6 billion plant. It employs about 1,200 people. I'm Haya Panjwani.
A new name headed for the Pentagon. If President Trump has his way, he signed an executive order yesterday renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War. And Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth supports the move.
This name change is not just about renaming, it's about restoring. Words matter. It's restoring, as you've guided us to, Mr. President, restoring the warrior ethos.
The president criticized the previous name as woke and said the new name is more appropriate. Congress must approve the name change. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind, to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my two sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-226-5454. That's 800-226-5454. 800-226-5454.
Republican Curtis Sliwa is running for mayor of New York City, and he likes his chances in the crowded field.
Curtis Sliwa, the red beret-wearing founder of New York City's Guardian Angels Anti-Crime Patrol Group, is the Republican candidate for mayor again in the city.
If the people are good enough to elect me mayor November 4th, I'll take the beret off for all time.
He lost to Democrat Eric Adams by almost 40 percentage points in 2021.
I will be the alternative.
The field includes Adams running as an independent, along with fellow Democrat Andrew Cuomo and the official Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani, who is leading. Sliwa is running on an anti-crime platform. Julie Walker, New York.
President Trump hosted a dinner last night for Republican members of Congress in the newly paved White House Rose Garden, telling them they were the first gathering of what he dubbed the Rose Garden Club. News and analysis at townhall.com. During testimony on Capitol Hill this week, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. defended the Trump administration's health agenda, including new vaccine policies and the firing of the head of the CDC. He also shared the president's concerns about the closure of rural hospitals across the country.
We've had 120 rural hospitals closed over the past 10 years. These institutions are not just delivering health access to rural Americans, but they are economic centers. They are cultural centers for those communities. They are often the largest employer.
Kennedy faced some sharp questions from the Senate Finance Committee. Some Democrats called for his resignation. The Justice Department has floated the idea of restricting transgender people from owning guns. There was some immediate backlash to that suggestion from gun rights groups and LGBTQ advocates. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hey, have you heard of what's happening in Hampshire this September?
You mean America's First Responders Fest? Oh yeah, it's going to be huge.
That's right. Saturday, September 20th from 1 to 6 p.m., downtown Hampshire will be alive with music, food, and fun, all to honor our incredible first responders.
And we're not just talking about police and fire. This celebration includes nurses, EMTs, and everyone who's the backbone of emergency services.
And we here at WRMN will be broadcasting live, plus stage presentations and a special first responders recognition ceremony.
And check out this entertainment lineup. Rick Lindy and the Wild Ones, Mixed Company Band, and Canyon Arrow Light featuring Tim and Joe.
And don't forget that classic car show presented by Gilbert's Eagles Club 1047, along with vendor booths, food trucks, and plenty of kids' activities. For more information, give us a call here at WRMN's office line. That's 847-741-7700. Or check out our website at WRMN1410.com.
We hope to see you there.
And once again, here we are to all of our listeners and viewers out there in this wonderful, wonderful Fox Valley area, in the Chicagoland area. This is The Truth About Chicago Sports on WRMN 1410 with your host, Marcus Mack and Cal Long, as we bring you nothing but the truth. As we get ready, we are 48 hours away from the Chicago Bears kicking off their season as they'll be playing the Minnesota Vikings Monday Night Football. Bright lights, what a way for the Bears to start this season with the new head coach, Ben Johnson, going up against a very, very tough Minnesota Vikings team, which has a dangerous defenses. Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator, loves to send the blitz. Last year, Caleb didn't handle it too well, but at the same time, here's the funny part about it. Bears could have won one of those games. If you remember, they got Eberflused. So it's not like, oh, this is an impossible game. And the Bears are underdogs, which kind of shocks me in some ways, considering they're at home going against a quarterback who hasn't seen any live bullets out there. But I get it. The Bears haven't proven anything. And so everybody's like, show me. And they're going to need all hands on deck. Make no mistake about it. Jalen Johnson is going to need to be healthy and hopefully playing. Jaquan Brisker is going to need to be out there being the hit man that he's known to be. Kevin Byard is going to have to be a steady veteran force out there. Tariq Stevenson is going to have a bounce back year. And the Spider-Man, Kyler Gordon, is going to have to be the madman that he always is out there on the field making plays. The secondary is still the strongest unit for the Bears, but at the same time, they're a unit that can only do so much because the more important unit, the defensive line, like we broke down, is going to have to be able to make key plays for that secondary to really be able to show their strengths and their abilities against this Minnesota Vikings team. So with that being said, Cal, how do you envision this going? And then I'll get your predictions or score pick if you want to give that out.
Well, as far as how I see it going, Brian Flores is going to, be a magician with blitz packages and pressure. It's going to be up to Caleb being able to read that quick and get the ball out. I know he's always worried about turnovers and not doing this and that, but you're going to have to give him up once in a while. You're going to have to put the ball out there for your guys to make plays. Getting that ball, the running game going, that's another big thing for me. We just talked about that earlier.
It's so important.
And I feel like on the defensive side, we caught a little bit of a break with Jordan Addison being suspended for those first couple games. They still have Justin Jefferson, and they still have the Bear killer, Aaron Jones. Okay. I think if you stop one or two of them, if you try to stop them both, but if you could stop one of them, I think we're in a good shape. And I got to think, what kind of offense are they going to run with J.J. McCarthy? Because J.J. McCarthy in Michigan wasn't throwing 20, 30 passes a game. That wasn't what he was asked to do. So now, are you going to try to change him because of those weapons that he has? Or are you going to play to his strengths and have pound the ball, play action to Jefferson, and kind of do that kind of thing? So it really comes down to, on the defensive side, what the Vikings offense is going to look like with a guy who's never really had to be a passing quarterback. I mean, he would throw I think there was a couple games in Michigan, he threw 3 passes. So now it's like, all right, now you're going to be, hey man, you got to throw 18 to 25 now. So now it's like, well, I never had to put this much torque on my shoulder. And now it's just, I have to see what they're going to bring out as far as play calling with him to really, see what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, you're 100%. It's to really even get an idea of how this is all going to come together. You're going to have to, like you said, you're going to have to see really how he is in the pocket, how poised he is, and how he's handling the defenses coming at him. But the worst case scenario for the Bears is if they're getting gashed in the run. The Bears are going to have to, before worrying about this kid at quarterback, make sure that the Bear killer, like you said, Mr. Aaron Jones, is not just destroying you and dissecting you left and right. What his kid is now, where he's got 2nd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. That's a very easy game for a young kid to play, especially when you got one of the best wide receivers in the game. You're gonna have to definitely make them one-dimensional, and I think that's through the pass. I think that you definitely need to see, like you said, can he throw the rock 30 times in a game and be successful without it being a bunch of interceptions all over the field? And I think that if you can get to that place where you can really put some situations where now he's trying to battle somebody like a Jalen Johnson. He's gonna lose. Jalen's gonna beat him in more times than not in that situation. But like I said, it's got to be a situation where your playmakers are put in a position for great success. If you're putting Jalen Johnson against Justin Jefferson and it's 2nd and 3, that's Vikings favor all day. So shutting down the run is gonna be priority number one. And it's an old adage, but I still think it stays true even for now. The Bears have to establish some type of running guy. They cannot, and that's why my biggest worry is at running back, because if Swift gets stuffed, okay, and we know he's not a bell cow. He's not a Derrick Henry that's just gonna go, hey, put it in his gut 30 runs and just let him go and pound a defense. No, a defense is more than likely gonna pound him. And so, that lets you know he does have limitations. There is gonna be a lot of times where there's gonna be passes to him out the backfield as opposed to him running out the backfield. And so, that does put a lot of onus on Caleb, where Caleb is probably going to have to drop back up to 30 plus times. That is where harm comes into play. So if the Bears can have some good big chunk plays, I don't need Swift to have 30 carries or 200 something yards. What I need him to have is around about 15 to 20 carries with at least all purpose yards being about 100 to 150. If I can get that from him, now we're talking. Now we're cooking with gas. But if Swift's got like 10 carries, Roshan nowhere to be found, Coleman, none guy couldn't even find the field, and Caleb's just had to throw it almost 40 times in the game, I just don't think that that's going to be a blueprint for success. Now, can it be pulled off? Does Caleb Williams have that ability? I believe he does. But I would like to see him grow into that rather than be thrust into a game one to start out.
Oh, yeah. And they need to start out fast. That's the one thing. They have this thing where the first drive is no, second drive is no. And then like the third drive, they're like, okay, we get it now. Now we know what we need to be doing. But they could be down 14-0, or they could be down 10-0, to where you need to start out right off the gate. And you need to at least get 3 points. You need to get points every drive if you can. I mean, I'd love that, but if you at least positive plays, not going backwards, and I feel like keep Minnesota's defense out there and just control the game. Don't give Justin Jefferson that last minute opportunity to be like, okay, I'm going to go win this game now. And then that transforms into, we control the game with the run. We take time off the clock. And it's less passing that Caleb has to do, because I don't want him throwing 40 times a game. If you're throwing 40 times a game, that means you're behind. At least that's how I look at it. It's like you should be throwing 20 to 28 passes a game. That should be enough for you to win with the team that he has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that it has to be – and in those 20 to 30 passes, it needs to be consistency. It needs to be. I want him to be as close to 70% as possible. Don't be near 50. Hitting more when you're dropping back. And here's the funny part about it. Caleb's capable of.
Oh yeah.
Especially if he really just focuses in. Like, stop trying to be the hero. Just play within the system. And that's the thing, that even if they do get down, what I don't think, and I believe that Caleb doesn't need to do is get frustrated around. And that's the same with Ben Johnson. Look, these football games are funny, man. Like, you could be down 2 touchdowns and all of a sudden the low play here, fumble there, a miscommunication, and your team is right back knocking on the door. So I don't want them to just completely abandon the game plan if it doesn't look that pretty at first, because the reality is that this is a new system. This is a new coaching staff. They did not play much in the preseason at all. Let's just be real about that. So, and like I've told everybody, I truly do believe this. In the modern day NFL, the first 2 games are now the new preseason games.
Oh yeah.
But they count, and so the coaches feel like, and that's why now if you really look at it too, you think about 17 games on the schedule. That makes a lot of sense. You go 0-2 in them first two games, 1-1, 2-0, whatever the case may be. It doesn't make or break the season. There's still plenty of football left to play, but at least you get an idea of what your team is. Your guys now, get that real feel, that the real action, because they're not hitting in practice anymore like that. They're not playing at full speed like they used to anymore. And even in preseason, they're just walking through the motions, man. Guys are just walking through the motions. They don't want to get hurt like an Austin Booker did against the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want in the preseason. So yeah, the first two games, is really kind of preseason. So it might not be pretty opening up against the Vikings, and I'm hoping that all fans out there, including myself, can take a moment to remember that even though this is relatively the same team returning from last year, they have a whole different mentality, a whole different system in place, and they have to play. Every football player tells you that they play at their best when it's just going out there, not thinking anymore. I don't have to think, oh, do I need to be this on this side for this play? Oh, do I need to go from this angle on this play? You just know this is the play that's called. This is my assignment. I don't even got to think about it. I know this is what I'm doing. And so for the Bears to get there, if that can click right away, that to me, that would be real special. And because I feel that also be very rare.
Oh yeah.
You don't see that happening a lot. Even Sean Payton took his lumps when he first got to the Broncos. And now look, the Broncos, they made the playoffs last year, but that first year, it didn't look pretty. It didn't look pretty at all. People were questioning Sean Payton, talking about, man, hey, I thought you were this Hall of Fame coach. Did you win a Super Bowl? And what's going on over there in Denver? Oh, you look like you got clock management issues. And all. That people forgot the whole time that he had a whole new team. He's trying to implement a whole new system. He's trying to implement his style of football in on a team that was a losing team. That doesn't just click overnight. The Chicago Bears were a losing team where they wouldn't have needed a new head coach. So yeah, they are returning some studs. And the Bears have playmakers. Like, that's, I guess, the part that is probably more of a frustration for all of us, the pundits and the fans, is the simple fact that these they could see it. We can all see it, that, man, you got guys that can make play. I mean, if I put Roma Doomsday, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, and Cole Kmet, I take just that group of guys right there, and I put them with Aaron Rodgers and Pittsburgh. You're going to tell me right now that Aaron isn't making plays and making things happen and putting pressure on a defense? So there's a lot, like I say, that's when we see all that. We get but we got to remember, man, that Caleb had a horrendous rookie season in terms of learning. And he still was able to manage to put up 20 touchdowns and only like 6 interceptions with 3,000 yards passing, which was more than Justin Fields ever threw. So, but I still can't, it just amazes me when I sit and I listen to people talk about Caleb, because the way they talk about him sometimes, you would think that Caleb threw for 1,000 yards and had 20 interceptions and 5 touchdowns. Seriously. Like if you listen to the way the national media, even some of our own pundits, the way that we talk about Caleb's rookie year, we talk about it like this guy basically came out there and fell flat on his face. He didn't make no plays. He was just looking completely lost. The kid threw for 3,000 yards, had 20 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. If Justin Fields had put numbers up like that, we wouldn't have drafted Caleb.
Exactly.
That's just facts.
Oh yeah, I know. And I feel like, I talk to a lot of people too that just always hate on him. Like, you get 4 seconds to read a defense, hike the ball, and throw, and see how good you'll be when you're getting hit every other play, or you have to scramble out. And then, you're throwing to guys who aren't there because they're just, he runs off the field because he's like, oh, the play's over. You have
that happened.
You have a running game that's not working for you. You have a running back who's good, but he is not an everyday back, and then you have a coaching staff that just decided to completely abandon
They were lost.
passing to the tight end. How do you abandon passing to one of your best players on the team like the whole second half of the season?
And think about it. Think about it, Cal. The offensive coordinator got fired. The offensive coordinator got fired like halfway into the season, and then they ended up letting the head coach go after that. But that just shows you right there how horrendous it was that the offensive coordinator that you brought in to coach this young phenom quarterback gets fired halfway through the season. So that tells me right there that not only was this kid getting bombarded, hit on the field, things are coming at him super fast, but he's not getting no answers. No one is there telling him, this is why this is happening to you. This is what you need to do to get better. When it's still, and I can't let it go when I hear that no one was watching film with this kid last year. It almost, because you're such a fan and you love the team, so it almost makes you almost kind of cry for a second. Like, why is our franchise like this? Like, we can't be these people. We're not these. Are we that team? Like have we become that team that we're that big of a joke to where we can bring in a number one pick of phenom talent and no coach sits down with him from the staff and watches film, just simple film. Hey, Caleb, this is what was going on this play. Hey, Caleb, this is what you could have did, or hey, this is what they were doing to you. Matt Eberflus was supposed to be this defensive dude, right? Like he's supposed to know all this stuff about you can't sit the kid down and be like, hey man, this is what that defense was doing right here. This was happening. I'm sorry. I will not bash him when you go through something like that.
Oh yeah.
And yet you still found a way to have a productive season.
And how many times did he, how many comebacks were there that fell short last year?
Oof.
Where it was, and then you have that Tyreek Stevenson debacle in Washington. That would have been a win. And then, you had a guy that wanted to be a coach, an offensive coordinator in Chicago that ended up going to DC because the head coach was worried about his job.
Was scared of him.
You bring Cliff Kingsbury here because he has a relationship with Caleb. He knows him. He coached him. He would be the greatest mentor for him, but you're worried about being replaced.
And something that'll happen to you anyway.
Yeah.
So you disserviced a player for your own selfish ego, and you still got fired. Yep. So you didn't bother to help the kid. You tried to help yourself, and you still ended up in the same boat instead of just choosing to help the kid. And this is why I stress, and this has become a theme on the Truth About Chicago Sports, and it's going to stay that way. The coaching matters. Coaching is very important. I mean, just look at that situation right there alone. He cost Caleb learning because he was worried about himself. When you're supposed to be the head coach, you're supposed to be worried about nothing but the team. And all he was worried about was trying to get himself another payday. It had nothing to do with Caleb. It was all about me. And who ended up suffering from that? The rookie franchise quarterback that is trying to come in here and take a position that has been maligned year after year after year and turn it into a position of stability for years to come. That, to me, is more. That is the worst. That is the biggest coaching malpractice that could ever be done. Worse than him and his indecisiveness on the field, costing them games by not knowing how to call a timeout. That was worse than anything. The fact that you chose yourself over and over and over time again, instead of choosing to help this young quarterback. And that also would explain a lot more why Jalen Johnson lost it in that locker room.
Yeah.
And they had to physically remove him from Matt Eberflus. Because if you think about it, what is happening behind the scene is that a player is seeing a coach that is only caring about himself. And that's what made Jalen Johnson snap. It had nothing to do with disrespecting this coach, trying to show this coach that, hey, we're tough guys in this room. What it was about is the realization that this dude cares nothing about us as a team. It's not even about wins and losses anymore. All he's trying to do is worry about his job.
Yep.
That crushed the Bears last year. That is what destroyed that locker room. That's why Eberflus lost the locker room. Once those players realized that this guy was only in it for uno and was not worried about anyone else, that's when the vibe changed. And no one picked up on it because we weren't getting those teamies. We were, but there was little stuff that was leaking out, and then the players got criticized for doing that. Oh, you guys shouldn't be talking on podcasts and oh man, you guys. But they're telling you, they're trying to tell you they're doing their best without saying it without saying it. They were doing their best of just saying, listen, there's a reason this doesn't look good on the field, and it's not because we can't execute. And so now, one thing I do know coming into this Monday night game, the Bears got a real coach this time. If there's one thing that I know from listening to Ben Johnson and seeing him, Ben Johnson's going to be ready. I don't know if the Bears team as a whole is going to be ready, but their coach, he is ready for this moment. He is ready to be a head coach.
Oh, yeah. This is a coaching staff that I feel has been one of their most complete since the Lovey days.
Yes.
I feel like as far as from top to bottom, where you have head coaching experience, you have, assignment coaches experience, and just all of them actually coming from similar areas, like gutting the whole Detroit staff, coming from New Orleans, coming from Miami, and coming together. I mean, I feel like it's not a whole bunch of random guys who were hired by a GM and a coach because, this guy seems like he fits. It's like these are guys who know each other and know how to gel and know how to coach.
Yeah. Yeah, this is this is one of the best staffs the Chicago Bears have had as a coaching whole, I think, in quite some time, because like you say, every position that is filled by a coach has someone that has proven themselves on a very high level, whether it was from being a player itself or an actual coach. So I really love how this staff. So like I said, that's the one thing I do know is that the Bears, the coaching staff will be prepared. They will have this team prepared as much as possible. But we're going to have to wait and see it all play out on paper. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Chicago Cubs. We got some Cubs talk to break down here in the Truth About Chicago Sports on WRMN 1410 AM every Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Make sure you check us out. And if you miss us, you go to YouTube and just simply search WRMN, and you'll find the Truth About Chicago Sports.
This is Larry Jones, and I'd like to talk to you about my bank, American Eagle Bank in South Elgin. Has your bank changed names in the last 10 years? Is your bank another faceless branch with headquarters in another city? Are you tired of earning next to nothing on your savings account or certificates of deposit, or does your personal banker treat you like a stranger? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then you're ready for a new banking experience, and American Eagle is the place for you. American Eagle is a locally owned independent bank that's rooted in the community, and American Eagle customers are greeted by name and treated with the respect that they deserve. American Eagle has an innovative program, Eagle Savings, that teaches your children to save while earning prizes and rewards. American Eagle offers great rates on certificates of deposit. My bank is located in South Elgin on Randall Road between the Target and Caputo's and is open Monday through Saturday. Give them a call at 847-742-7400, and a real person will answer the phone. American Eagle Bank, a place where you matter.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my Grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. The Alzheimer's Association provides care, support, and research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Here on WRMN AM 1410, we like to keep you informed and in tune to what's happening here in the Fox River Valley and what's going on here on WRMN. We recognize the importance of local radio to be a part of the conversation and to be a part of the community for the community.
You know, we talked about the importance of community theater, but supporting community radio is a big deal too. And, you know, for WRMN, this is a really cool thing that you guys do every day, and a really important thing. You have to have a local media outlet to talk about what's going on in your town. So you guys do a nice job.
Tune in to AM 1410, WRMN. Don't forget, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/WRMN Radio. Keep in tune and informed on what's happening here in the Fox River Valley, right here on WRMN.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,000 annuities and summarized rates and benefits from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call now.
800-760-1845. 800-760-1845. 800-760-1845. That's 800-760-1845.
And welcome back to the show. This is The Truth About Chicago Sports here on WRMN 1410 AM. Holla at your boys. This is Marcus Mack and Cal Long hosting the show. And we broke down a lot of great Chicago Bears talk as we got the Vikings. But guess what? There's another team out there that's making some noise and heading into a home stretch, and that's the Chicago Cubs. And you know, we talked about this, Kyle, when we said that once they had got through that Brewer series, that everything was gonna start to come a little easier for them. Now, it's looked real beautiful. They come out against the Angels and do exactly what we thought they would do against the Angels, sweep them. And then they went to San Francisco and just, I don't know what happened in that series, but the wheels just completely fell off. It was the first time they got swept since going back to the LA Dodgers series. And then it was almost kind of like a two-step forward, two-step backwards kind of feeling where it's like you're feeling really good about winning won the series against the Brewers 3 out of the 5 games. You sweep the Angels, and then it's like, okay, we're ready. We're right where we need to go. And then they come into this, just what's happening after this Frisco, but then they did exactly what we thought they would do and bounce back, playing teams that, let's be honest, are not playing for much at this point. Should have swept Colorado, came real close. Colorado was able to pull out a walk-off, I think it was in that last game, that 6-5 victory. And then they obviously had the tough loss on Wednesday to Atlanta, as they're now playing in this weekend series against the Washington Nationals, who we also know is a team that pretty much sold off most of their pieces, are not that effective. And then they'll go back to Atlanta, a team that they easily handled. They should be able to handle easily again. The way the Cubs are looking right now with 5 games out of first place, do you think they really have a legitimate shot to try to make a push for the Brewers, or is it just, hey, let's just focus on this wild card and call it a day?
I still think from when we talked about it before, you just make the wild card. Don't worry about what the Brewers are doing. Just keep winning games, keep winning series. Unfortunately, the bats in Frisco figured out what to do to hit home runs, which they haven't really been doing all year. And then going into Colorado, and you should have dominated and kind of did. And then doing really good against Atlanta, and maybe Craig Counsell should have kept, Cade in for another inning, throwing, shutout game. So right now, don't worry about the division. Worry about getting into the playoffs, and that's when the season really starts for them. That's when you got to do this.
That's
We're here.
when it's real. That's when it's real.
Don't chase the Brewers, because in the playoffs, anything can happen. Everybody starts at 0 once the playoffs start.
Yeah. And the Cubs have been the big beneficiaries, and let's just be honest. With all the moves that the Padres made, none of it's come together. In their last 10 games, they're 2-8. The Mets have been really lackluster after the All-Star break, and in some kind of way, still found a way to manage to win 75 games. And the next closest team to the Cubs is the Giants, who I don't think the Giants will make the playoffs. I think the Giants are playing gutty baseball. They're playing with their heart and not really. I don't think that they are really kind of like looking at it from a mathematical standpoint. They just kind of like, hey, let's just try to stack wins and see what happens. And they're really rolling right now. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They've won 4 games, but I don't think that there's enough games in the season for them to overtake the Mets or the Padres, and they're definitely not going to catch the Cubs. So the Cubs, like I was telling Blake, and I believe I told you, that the Cubs' biggest competitors coming down the stretch was the Padres and the Mets, and so far they've kept ahead of them perfectly, and that's exactly all I ask to do. So, like you said, don't worry about the Brewers. Just keep winning series and make sure you stay ahead of those two teams that have done the Cubs a tremendous favor down the stretch of the final stretch of the season, by really losing a lot. So, I mean, as much as we want to be really hard on the Cubs, there was low points. They are not the best team away. They're just barely above 500, much better team at home. But guess what? They're right there in the mix. And like you say, once you get in, anything can happen. Remember, attrition is a part of this. There's no guarantee that any of these other teams are going to come into this playoffs with fully healthy, ready to rock and roll. So, just get there. And that's where the Cubs have positioned themselves. But let's be honest. That's where they were positioning themselves all season.
Oh, yeah.
This what we're watching is not a failed mission, meaning that the Cubs have had this failed season in some kind of a way they're luckily falling into the wild card. No, this has been a very successful season, and their strong standing in the wild card is a testament of how good of a season it is. And like I said, the Brewers just had a really, really, really amazing 2 months of baseball, but they've kind of seemed to come back down to earth. And with the Cubs only sitting 6 games behind them, or 5.5, it's not like the Brewers are these world beaters. I don't fear the Brewers if the Cubs face them in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, but when you're talking about their biggest opponent, I feel like for the Cubs, the biggest opponents themselves.
Yes.
They need to make sure that they're the ones doing what they need to do to get where they need to be. I've seen the way that PCA has been struggling. And he's really showing his frustration.
It's killing the team. It's killing the team.
And Tucker, I feel like I forgot what the lineup was the other day. But, I mean, it looked like everybody was getting rest now. And so maybe that's a good sign for, the last stretch of the regular season into the playoffs. Get some of these guys some rest. You have some younger guys. You signed, some older guys too. You brought in Carlos Santana, and now bring in these guys to kind of just, all right, rest up, heal the wounds, get the bruises taken care of, because we got some games that we got to be playing in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and some important games. And I do love the fact that it's not, like I said, coming down at the end of the schedule, it's not just like the Cubs are just getting all layups or something like, oh, we're just facing cupcake teams or something like that. There is going to be some tests still in there. They are going to have to face the Mets coming up here soon. They will have to face the Cardinals again, which is always just a good rivalry. The Cardinals would love nothing better than to stick it to the Cubs at the end of the season with a couple losses. So those are going to be tests. But at the same time, you can't get above yourself. You can't start counting your chickens before they hatch. You have to handle the Nationals. You have to handle the Braves, and you gotta go handle the Rays. If you do that, then I feel like you could comfortably go into Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and then that, which is what I feel is going to be the toughest stretch for you, those last 6 games, Mets and St. Louis.
Yep.
But if you handle business, those games really shouldn't matter. The Mets should be a formality, and the Cardinals should just be a rivalry thing.
Yep. Yeah, especially if, whatever the situation happens with the Mets, they could be in the same boat as the Cubs. Like, hey, we can coast into this now. If they start to kick it up in the last week, then they put a little bit of distance with themselves. It could be one of those things where people are going to those games like, who's even on the field right now? I don't even know who these guys are.
Like it's just everybody, like you said, at that point you're bringing up young guys to let them get some at bats. You're resting your guys because you're going to make a major push. And really, so when I'm looking at the East right now, the way it's sitting right now, it looks like the Phillies are pretty strong on odds-on favorites to win that with 6-game lead over on the Mets right now. And then, like I said, with the Cubs sitting 5.5, I think that, like you said, that might be because it kind of just seems like them and the Brewers are trading off with each other right now. As in the last 10 games, both are 5 for 5. So even when the Brewers lose, the Cubs don't seem to jump ahead, vice versa. So they're just kind of staying stagnant with each other. The real toughest play is gonna be the Dodgers and the Padres. That's where the flip-flop's gonna. That's where the flip-flop is the biggest question mark. They're not only battling each other, but they're also battling the wild card. Like, it could end up being both teams could end up making the playoffs, or it could end up being where whatever team wins that division makes the playoffs. And so that one is going to be the one to watch big time, because I'll tell you right now, if there's a scenario, if there's a world where the Dodgers don't get in, it's right back on for the Cubs, baby. You think about that. They'd be one of the strongest teams next to the Phillies in the dance. Now, that doesn't guarantee you nothing, but I'm just saying in terms of that, we've seen it, though. We've seen it. We know that the bats could get hot. PCA's in his head. Yep. It's not about his stance is off now. He's clutching. He's pressing too much because he wants to try to get back to that ride, that flavor. You know what I mean? Everything was rolling. Everything felt good. And for a young player, that could be very intoxicating. Everybody in town knows your name. Everywhere you go, hey, PCA, hey. And now all of a sudden your struggles and you become the smallest man in the room. And so here's the thing that PCA has to remember, and I hope the Chicago Cubs themselves, it was never about PCA putting them over the top to be a championship team. He was a bonus. He was he was the piece that everybody was like, wow, we weren't expecting that. And so his struggles, even though I think that he wears the weight heavily, he has to remember his struggles don't make or break the Cubs, in my opinion.
Oh, no, not at all. Especially since this was supposed to be a year where there was going to be ups and downs because it was his first real season, and then he comes out with this, Gold Glove All-Star ability right off the bat. Like, you couldn't handle that 162 games. Like, there's going to be some ups and downs, but it seems like right now he's just trying to just hit the ball out of the park instead of just hitting the ball.
And you're a fast guy. You're a fast guy. Use that speed. Use your base running ability to just get on base. And like you said, that's been his biggest problem. He's so busy worried about trying to crush it instead of just focusing on getting on base.
Yep.
Just get on base.
And then now we just need to get that bullpen back to normal, and a couple of additions that they added, at least during the Braves series, look pretty good.
Let me ask you this, though, because Blake told me, and I had to agree at the time, he did not feel that the Cubs had enough pitching to win a World Series. And then we saw the bats go cold, and we saw the Cubs pitching really kind of hold the line.
Mm-hmm.
Is that statement still valid, or is there maybe just enough in the Cubs rotation where they could see themselves in the World Series?
I think there could be just enough, and I mean like a hair bit enough. Because then I look at it with the rotation. You know, are they going to actually let Cade throw? You know, is Imanaga going to be Imanaga? You know, is Boyd going to be the season Boyd? You know, or is he now going to be in the playoffs and not be able to do that? You know, Drew Pomeranz going to keep up his way that he's going, and then you got to look at how there was a little bit of a stretch where Palencia has been all over the place when he's coming into close games. I mean, not even being able to throw strikes. You know, once, you know, is he going to get it tuned in, or is he going to now be like, all right, we're going to switch you back and forth between 8th and 9th with, is it Kittering to come in, you know, and kind of go back and forth with them as far as closer setup. So, I mean, it's there. They just need to be fine tuned, and I think they could do it. But like I said, it would be a hair's length.
Yes.
You know,
I mean, it's a lot of ifs. It's a lot of ifs, and that's the problem, because you when you go into the playoffs, the one thing you want less of for your team is ifs. And I mean, I think that goes regular season games too, but this isn't football. This isn't 17 games like we were talking about with the Chicago Bears. You know, we got all these ifs right now, and then we're going to get those answered on Monday night, but you don't want to have ifs. You don't, if the left tackle plays good, if, you know, the offense is consistent, you don't want and right now what we're looking at with the Cubs is that there's ifs. If Cade Horton can come out and continue this ride where he's looking like he's going to be rookie of the year, if he can come into this in a playoff series and continue to rise above the moment, that definitely changes it. Now, if he comes in the playoffs and he looks exactly like what he is, a rookie that's now walked into one of the biggest moments of his pitching career, that's okay too, because you know why? I'm glad that he's going to get that experience. And I think that that's very important for a young guy like this who just, let's be honest, we weren't expecting it at first, but he might be developing into, dare I say, a number 1, even number 2 starter.
Well, here, I got a question for you. Playoffs start today. Who's pitching game 1?
At first I was all Imanaga. I was Shota. You would have asked me this even last week, I would have probably still said Shota. But after seeing Cade in his last outing and seeing how he's been able to really just, even down the stretch now, consistently go out and give you really good innings, I'm not afraid to let him be the first kid. They're all grown men. I'm not afraid to let him be the first pitcher to go out there, because I feel like if it does, you got Shota to lean on. What happens if Shota gets bombshelled and now you're throwing the rookie in a hold the fort situation? So I kind of would prefer, let's let him out there, and if it doesn't go, if he loses the game, then we know we got Shota here in this second game to try to get us that win, right? So I would go with Cade now at this point. I have seen enough from him to believe that he would be effective from game 1 on that mound.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. I think him, then Shota, and then Boyd. I feel like that's your 1, 2, 3.
That's your 1, 2, 3 right now. And is it my most confident 1, 2, 3? No, it's not. But at the same time, all 3 of these pitchers though have shown enough, in my opinion, to where you could say, hey, I could count on this guy to give me maybe possibly 6 good innings, 5 to 6, maybe even 7 good innings. And if you could just get that alone, you're cooking with gas. I would really love to see Jameson get back in the mix. I always feel you still need 4 pitchers going in the playoffs rather than 3, just that 4th guy to eat some innings up sometimes for you. And so I'm really hoping that Jameson is back. and in playoff condition. It's not just one thing to be back and then you roll a guy. I mean, this ain't Kirk Gibson limping in to face Dennis Eckersley. It's a completely different situation when you're a pitcher. All right, like so. No, I need some help from him, big time. Though, a guy that I know, and he doesn't, because it's not flashy, right? It's not sexy, but I have been impressed with Carson Kelly, and I think that in the playoffs, we talk about PCA struggle, but I think in the playoffs, a guy like Carson Kelly might really turn into a real dangerous person, as he's shown this ability to make clutch play in big moments, and that's what you want to see from the guys that aren't the stars. Everybody knows what Kyle Tucker can do. Everybody knows what Dansby Swanson brings to the table, what Sale brings. Everybody knows what they're looking for PCA. But a guy like Carson Kelly, he could be your Freddie Freeman for this year.
Yep, and and you got to really give the hat off to him, because this whole season he's done way more than he was even expected to do. He was brought in to be, hey, you sit here while this young kid is out there for most of the time, and then Amaya goes down. So now you got him, and then even the resurgence of Reese McGuire.
Yeah,
his little. I mean, he comes in and makes that impact right away, and having that 1-2 catcher tandem kind of thing, is pretty crazy to have two guys who can give you all that kind of stuff when they weren't expected to do that when they came to the club.
Yeah, and it's just it's that sneaky bat. And I think that every team needs it. I know Freddie Freeman is not a sneaky name, but on that lineup, he's not. I mean, he's Freddie Freeman. The guy's an all-star player. But in that Dodger lineup, when you got Mookie Betts, when you got Shohei, I mean, who's the catcher out there? He's really good too, and I'm blanking on his name, but I know he's also a stud. You've got guys out there that are just, can simply just flat out hit and get it done. So a guy like Freddie Freeman, goes under the radar, and then all of a sudden the playoffs kick off and Freddie Freeman becomes King Kong and literally carries the Dodgers to a World Series. So, that sometimes you need that background guy. And I'm hoping that I'm hoping that either Carson Kelly, Ian Happ, or Matt Shaw could possibly turn into that guy for the Cubs in the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, the only thing that I worry about is Happ does get very streaky. There's times where he's hitting the ball great like he has been, and then he goes into a drought. And then everybody's like, why is this guy still on the team? You need to bench him. You need to do this. And then, you wait a couple games, and then it comes back. And that's the one thing I worry about with Happ now. Shaw's coming around, but, I mean, I wouldn't get rid of his glove for anything. Even if he's slumping at the plate, you can't get rid of that glove at third base.
That hot corner is important.
Because you don't have anybody that plays the field like he does at third.
Yeah, that hot corner is important. Yeah. That hot corner is important. You, especially coming down in the playoffs, the pitching owns the playoffs. We know that. Pitching owns the playoffs and defense. Pitching and defense owns the play, and you're gonna need Matt Shaw's glove way more than his bat in the playoffs. A guy like that could make the type of play that could literally save a win for you.
Yes.
With his defensive glove. So a guy like that, without a doubt, I think that he's still going to be huge, even if the bat is not in play. And that's the thing that I do love about most of if you look, even though the Cubs they've gone through some hitting stuff, their defense is stellar. Their defense is stellar from every position. Everybody has got a real solid glove. Bush, Nico Horner, Matt Shaw, Swanson, Happ, PCA, Kyle Tucker. These guys can flat out get outs for you if you're keeping that ball down and in the park.
Yeah. I mean, and even some of the guys that come off the bench still have, pretty decent gloves as well. So, I mean, it's not like they have, a whole bunch of just, bums on the bench. I mean, look at what Willie Castro has been able to do in his time out in the field. I mean, and you got Alcantara coming out, giving PCA a break. So it's not like the guys on the bench are that many slouches either,
No. And Justin Turner has been huge, if not for his bat, just for the way he's kept the temperament of the team and the mentality. The team was on the brink, and I don't think that it was Craig Counsell that kept them together. I think it was Justin Turner.
Yep, and I told you that in the beginning of the year, actually in the wintertime when they signed him. I said that's the guy that's going to be the clubhouse guy. That's that's the dude that's going to hold them together, being that veteran who's been around and seen it all, and is just going to be like, hey, man, you're going through slumps. He puts his arm around you. He brings you into the clubhouse. He talks to you. He gets you out of those slumps so you don't have to worry about it. I feel like that's one of the, little bits in sports where those guys are so valuable in that role than what they actually do out on the field.
Out on the field, it just means so much more to have that guy that can keep you focused when you're not on the field and if you're struggling on the field. And he has proven to be that guy. I mean, like I say, I mean, the Cubs went through their worst stretch in the month of August, and yet they still finished at, I think, 500 or either a game above 500. And so that is a testament to the guys that is in that that's in that clubhouse, that's in that dugout. And we just have to give them the shots on their flowers. Once again, when we come back next week, we'll be talking about the Chicago Bears. Come and join us next week here on The Truth About Chicago Sports, WRMN, 1410 AM.
On September 8th, coming out to Newman's Corner Pub in Hampshire for the WRMN Bears Tailgate, starting at 2 p.m., going all the way up until 5 p.m. Join hosts from Blow the Whistle, Big Top Sports, The Truth About Chicago Sports, and Fantasy Football Blitz. And you could also check us out on YouTube Live, Monday, September 8th, for the Vikings versus the Bears at Newman's Corner Pub, 1000 State Street in downtown Hampshire, our new favorite spot for tailgating.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 12 o'clock.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Greg Clugston in Washington. A judge has blocked the Trump administration from ending legal protections for Venezuelans and Haitians.
The ruling means 600,000 Venezuelans whose temporary protections expired in April or whose protections were set to expire September 10th have status to stay and work in the U.S. It also protects about 500,000 Haitians. U.S. District Judge Edward Chen, who issued the ruling, says Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem exceeded her authority in ending protections. I'm Mike Hempen.
Israel's army is urging Palestinians in Gaza City to move to a designated humanitarian area in the south. The move comes as the military expands operations in the famine-stricken city by targeting high-rise buildings. Aid groups warn that a large-scale evacuation could worsen the humanitarian crisis. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says Republicans are developing a strategy to confirm a series of President Trump's nominees over the coming weeks.
We got to figure out how to make sure we've got the votes to move it, and so we've been having those conversations here, and I hope that we get to a spot where we're ready to move, and if things go according to plan, I think we get on that next week.
Thune was interviewed on the Salem Radio Network. He says the GOP is considering a rules change that would allow the Senate to confirm nominees in batches instead of one at a time. Davey Johnson, an all-star second baseman who won the World Series twice with the Baltimore Orioles as a player and then managed the New York Mets to the World Series title in 1986, has died. He was 82 years old. Davey Johnson also managed 4 other Major League Baseball teams. The Dow was down 0.5 percentage point to close out the week yesterday. More at townhall.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-583-0141. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-583-0141. That's 800-583-0141. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
In the aftermath of the deadly July 4th weekend flooding in Texas that killed children and counselors at Camp Mystic, Governor Greg Abbott has signed new safety measures into law.
The bills that aim to improve the safety of youth camps was given final legislative approval this week in Austin. Among other things, they prohibit cabins in dangerous parts of flood zones and require camp operators to develop detailed emergency plans. One measure allocates funding from the state's Rainy Day Fund to help pay for disaster relief, including warning sirens and improved weather forecasting. John Scott reporting.
The Trump administration is taking its immigration crackdown to the health care safety net. It's investigating Medicaid spending in at least 6 Democratic-led states that provide comprehensive health coverage to poor and disabled immigrants who are living in the U.S. without permanent legal status. News and analysis at townhall.com. A scramble is underway in Ohio over school buses. Public school districts canceled bus transportation for thousands of high schoolers, but it's still busing students to private and charter schools under state requirements. Compounding the problem is a shortage of drivers. Author Christopher Scalia is concerned about the decline of fiction reading in America. He's out with a new book titled 13 Novels Conservatives Will Love, but probably haven't read.
When you speak to conservatives about fiction they like because it expresses conservative values or ideas, we tend to talk about the same handful of books. And most of those books are very good, but we're so focused on that small selection, I think we've lost sight of kind of the great literary tradition that's at our disposal.
Scalia, who appeared on the Salem Radio Network, said, "Great fiction is a source of beauty, and beauty is good." More at townhall.com.
Join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube live channel.
Chicago defense attorney Mark Schieblo has co-authored the book titled DUI Jury Trial, which is a true story of a DUI case that he defended. The accused was an Illinois truck driver arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol. This book contains facts about the case from the date of the arrest up to the jury's verdict, and this nonfiction novel also includes the transcripts from the jury trial itself. The book DUI Jury Trial is now available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com.
Fixed bayonets, comrades. This is the Chief Guard of the Republic Veteran Radio Shoutout Show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid every Saturday noon to 1, WRMN 1410 AM, Fox River Valley Media Network out of Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Follow us on YouTube Live and the WRMN 1410 channel. The studio number here is 847-931-1410. That's for calling in. But if you don't want your voice heard on the radio, you could text us in 505-926-1410. Let's see some text on there. I will respond to the text. And you can also follow our shows. I archive them over on Chief Guard of the Republic YouTube, the YouTube channel for the Chief Guard of the Republic. And you get the link to that on cgr.silink.net. That's cgr.silink.net. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. I got to turn up my headphones here a bit, but no, I could hear you. So I got a little veteran shout out here. Everyone knows that America's First Responders Fest is coming up. This is going to be in the Hampshire. It's a Hampshire community event. It's a little west of us, right?
That's correct.
Hampshire, Illinois. All right. It's downtown Hampshire. I'm sure if you Google map it, it'll take you right there. It's between 1 and 6, and that's going to be on September 20th, 2025. And we will be doing our radio show live before that. So we will be on site and doing the radio show. They're going to have some first responders recognition, live entertainment. Deacon Frost will be there. Rick Lindy and the Wild Ones. Canyon Arrow Light featuring Tim and Joe. It's going to be a classic car show presented by the Gilbert Eagles Club, number 1047. There'll be vendor booths, food trucks, kids' activities. So come out early, and me and the boys from Post 104 American Legion are going to be out there. Two of my guys are hot rodders. I hope they can both show up, and they'll give their opinion on the classic car show. Both of those guys are really good with that stuff. All right, so that's my veteran shout out for right now, and so today I wanted to talk about what was it? Uneven prosecution and sentencing, or the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. Right, Paul?
Right.
Yeah. So one of the things that I got under, Paul, what does restorative justice mean to you?
Prison.
Well, to me,
in the last 20 or so years, we've kind of had some social influences come in to our justice system, and there's some good things about it, and there's some bad things about it. One of the good things that came out of it is sometimes they have a thing called Veterans Court, where a guy gets a little bit, psychologically a little askew, and they do things like they get him counseling and stuff like that. And maybe he just went off the rails, through some real no fault of his. He couldn't deal with some things or whatever, and they get him the help he needs, and sometimes, it really helps. All right. Then there's also, I don't want to get into the vernacular, but there's the pavement princesses. Sometimes they have a court and a program for them, and they get them their GEDs, and then they get them some skills and training, and they kind of get them on the right path in life. And those are all good things, okay? But then there's these other psychological things that we get into that have no business being in court. We used to call them, I remember once I was in a meeting that's going back about 10 or 12 years, and there was an issue that came up with some young people. And it was like a supervisor's meeting, and at the time I was an acting supervisor. my whole last 2 years at the state. And this woman came up with this idea, and they call it a peace circle or a peace circle. Okay, and
Peace circle, yes.
Yeah, and she came from another state where where this was big, like a tribal thing and stuff like that, and basically you talk it out, and then you have your kumbaya moment and everything like that, and she was trying to promote that for an actual case we had going, and that didn't go over too well, and that's okay, but I've noticed when they do things like that, there's always blame affixed to the victim in something like that. And, or there's blame affixed to society. And I'm not a big fan of that. I think that as a person in society, we have to conform. We're not, a pride of lions, where we bite each other when, we want to send a message. We have laws, we have, morals. You should be taught by your parents. God forbid, if you don't have a parental structure, the school steps in, or, there's big brothers and big sisters, and there's after school clubs and things like that. And that kind of gives you a sense of responsibility and balance and stuff like that. But restorative justice, I'm not real big on that in a lot of ways, because you often find out that you're not really restored. You're just telling the person, and what they used to call with the ones with the pavement princesses, they would rap all the time. In other words, not sing, would have rap sessions. They would talk, and then you talk it out, and I like that in a lot of things, and I really like that in movies from the 1970s with Elvis and things like that. But I don't like that for our society today. I think that as you dumb down the responsibility, then you start letting things slip away. It's the old Rudy Giuliani idea of, if you don't fix the broken window, you're going to be real sorry tomorrow, because then there's going to be a burglary, then there's going to be an assault, then there's going to be a murder. Let's fix the broken window the way we fixed the broken window. And if you need help, there's all kinds of social services that you could be recommended to in your either supervision or probation or incarceration. And, I had a circumstance where a good friend of mine, a family from St. Bede's, they had a relative who did something extremely poor, real bad judgment. And then he did something extremely, extremely bad, but not to a person. And he asked me to recommend an attorney, and I kind of helped him, and I recommended an attorney. And the guy got a substantially less of a prison sentence, okay? And, I met him when he came out of prison, and he seemed like he was restored. And the sad thing was, I don't think he was. He ended up killing himself about a year later. And as I think of it now, I don't know if it was a good thing to help him get a reduced sentence, because I think had he been more in the system and gotten more counseling and treatment, he wouldn't have had such a short life.
These people aren't automatons. You can't control what they do or what they're going to do or whatever. You give advice, you give advice in good faith, and then that's it. Don't worry about it, because if they do something, you just gave advice in good faith like anyone would do. But I think I have a different definition of restorative justice. All right.
Okay.
In my opinion, restorative justice, what they're using is simply a means to supersede the 14th Amendment. All right. And what we get things that they used to call it, affirmative action. Right.
Uh-huh.
So they're no longer hiring for the best qualified person. They're adding in racial, ethnic, and gender traits into that. And I think the court overruled that. But then they started testing for some jobs, and they started race norming the tests. So I would get a different score than someone of a different race or someone of a different gender than me. You know, my score 100% was only equal to 91 because of who I was. And then they said you couldn't do that again. And now they call it diversity, inclusion, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, right? I might got the E and I separated, but diversity, equity, inclusion. And again, it pretty much eliminates one group in that inclusion, right? Because they're not going after like professional basketball to make sure that professional basketball has a nationwide ethnicity matches nationwide ethnicity statistics, right? Because that just won't work. In professional sports, they pretty much hire based on the best qualified person. But when you come to restorative justice, it's where activists, prosecutors, and judges don't prosecute crimes because they're like, oh, well, because they live in a socioeconomically deprived area, they were forced to do this, so we're not going to prosecute them. Or a judge gives them the lightest sentences possible. And that's their restorative justice because they were so oppressed, right? They were oppressed. And that's my definition of the restorative justice there. And the trouble is, when you start doing that, the other, you're taking other races or divisions of people, and you're saying you are more by doing that. You're saying you're more responsible for them. You're more responsible than them. So because you're supposed to be more responsible, we're going to give you a harsher sentence, or we're going to prosecute you because of who you are, because you're supposed to be more responsible. Whereas, oh, they're not responsible. And I think that is the most racist thing that I can imagine, is telling one group of people, we're not going to prosecute you, or we're not going to give you heavy sentences, or we're going to continue to give you probation until we finally can't do it anymore, and then we're going to incarcerate you. Right? And that's my definition of the restorative justice system, where activist judges and activist prosecutors refuse to prosecute crimes that they would absolutely prosecute another group for.
Well, that's part of it, but it's also, it comes under their ability of what we would call selective enforcement.
Yes,
they're turning a blind eye to certain crimes, but like if you or I did it, we would be punished to the max. Well, we used to say this a lot when we worked. You know, like we would say that if that was me, I'd be in prison right now. We used to say that, especially, you know, us other prosecutors, that, you know, had I done something like that, you know, I would be in jail right now. And then, you know, but there'd be a reason, you know, like the community would come forward, or this one would come forward, and then they would have 100 letters and things like that. And, you know, but if a good and solid person went off on a bender and he did it, he'd be looking at hard time right now. So we used to say, if that were you or I, we'd be doing hard time right now, not this guy, you know, with them fighting to give him, you know, probation with the first 6 months in county jail to make it look like he served some time, and then he only does 3 months, and then he goes and gets a certificate and he does 12 days, you know. So you're right, but it comes under their title of selective enforcement and what, you know, what's inherent in their job and responsibilities.
Yeah, and you know, I looked it up on the AI, the magic Google machines, these, right? And it's the prosecutors have part of their job is they have discretion.
Yeah.
Discretion in who they can prosecute. But when
it's called prosecutorial discretion.
But when it gets outrageously leaning to one side, who's calling that out?
Nobody, because the quote the citizens are demanding it, or the citizens are requiring it, and it's funny you should bring this up, but I was up kind of late last night, and there's an issue with the guy that was high on the mushrooms that tried to turn the engines off of the jet. And he was prosecuted both federally and by the state. And he just got, I'm not talking federally, he pled guilty yesterday, but state-wise, he got 50 days in jail. And he's got to go around and speak to young people and student groups about the dangers of psychedelic drugs. But he was in a jump seat on another airline, and one of the responsibilities is, if a guy's in a jump seat, if something happens to the flight deck crew, he's supposed to be the pilot in command, even if he's from another airline. Well, this guy tried to pull the oxygen bottles and turn the engines off because he thought he was dreaming. But and he may have psychological problems, you would have to do something like that. But I don't know if 50 days is, when you had maybe 200 people's lives at stake. I could understand them charging them with attempted murder and then
50 counts. Them. 50 counts.
Yeah, well, yeah, but 50 days?
Well, then what they're going to say is,
a year of thinking about it should be good, but 50 days, and maybe with good time you get off in 25 days. But that's what we are. We've morphed to the thing where we care more about, and to a certain extent, I've always had this problem. It seems like the defendant, and rightfully so, because they're at jeopardy, they have more rights than the victim. But who speaks for the victims?
The prosecutors are supposed to be doing it.
That's what the state's attorneys are supposed to do. But they've just become another voice for the defendant, I think.
Yeah, depending on who the defendant is. Again, if I was on that airplane and I started, trying to release the safety door or got up out of my seat, smashed into the pilot's area and said, hey, I'm going to take control and fly this down, I'm done. I'm in the deepest, darkest hole, and I've never seen again. Look at what they did to people that just merely walked into the Capitol building.
Right.
Threw them in the deepest, darkest hole, never to be seen again. And I think that's where I think we need, an interpretation of the 14th Amendment, not just equal protection under the law, but equal protection for people under the law. All right. Look at it this way. They had it's not a law, right? It wasn't a law. It was policy that they weren't going to prosecute shoplifters for anything below what?
Well, it was a huge amount of money. It was like $10,000 at one point. Yeah. And that's what caused the rioting in the streets and the pilfering and I would even say to a certain extent the huge brazen robbery that we had in Chicago yesterday, where you
see, I'm kind of like, I'm always looking at some angles and everything. Not that I'm looking for, I wrote a 250 word paper. It took me about 5 minutes in warrant officer school about loopholes. But
yeah,
what's to prevent, if they're going to hold that policy fair for everybody, right? What's to prevent me from going to a coin shop or a gold shop or one of these places, smashing in, grabbing the thing, tossing it to a friend who's going to hide it somewhere, and then getting arrested and getting not charged and going out and hitting another one and hitting another one and hitting another one until I got $1 million worth of stuff one after another and never been prosecuted or touched because, it's not our policy. Because little amounts could add up, right? So why can't I take advantage of that? And people went out and literally took advantage of that. So when we're talking about the juveniles and they were doing peace circles in Area 3, right, for the juveniles. And we had some great youth officers that were forced kind of to set this up because they're just following department policy and state's attorney juvenile department policy and everything. And they're trying to keep these kids out of the courts because the schools are having them locked up for, if they don't like the kid, they have them locked up. If they like the kid could do no wrong, torturing everyone. They're picking and everything. They're trying to keep it out of the courts. And with the juveniles it's a matter of intent, right? It's a matter of intent. And what society says is that your brain isn't functioning enough to have clear intent until you're 18. When you know.
Well, now we're saying 25. This is what's totally unfair because when you think about it, if that's the case and that's the standard, then Billy the Kid isn't a bad guy. Do you understand what I'm saying? He didn't have the mentality to form. He was right. That's what's crazy about this. I've had judges who I knew would say this stuff, and it just doesn't fly. It doesn't fly. But Billy the Kid wasn't a bad guy. Somebody else wasn't a bad guy. They are. Face it.
The thing is, you want the test of whether they know right or wrong. If they're arrested for battery on an old lady, punch them in the head and see if they cry.
Right.
Oh, you shouldn't have hit me. Oh, so you knew that was wrong. Okay, charge him with aggravated battery on that old lady as an adult. Well, he knew what was right and wrong. Obviously, he admitted to it. But, that's what something in the 14th Amendment, something has to be sitting there to control, like, prosecutors, where it's like, hey, some of this stuff absolutely has to be prosecuted. It's almost like you have to have a jury, a grand jury for every single crime out there that's going to say right away whether you're going to prosecute it or not, and then hold the state's attorney's feet to the fire. All right, we'll be back for the next quarter of the show. Want to read some action-packed, exciting pulp fiction? Read the works of Michael Tooman, now featuring the international crime thriller, I Married a Bot Madam. Available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle editions. The paperback is also available at other book retailers. Check out Michael Tooman's webpage at Scilink.net. That's Papa, Sierra, Yankee, Lima, India, November, Kilo. November, Echo, Tango.
When disaster strikes, flood or fire, every second counts. At Emergency Construction Group, they specialize in immediate response and same-day service for any residential, commercial, or industrial emergency across the Chicagoland area. With over 30 years of experience, they've got the expertise, manpower, and equipment to handle any size loss fast. They follow strict IICRC guidelines to restore your property the right way, the first time. Their team values transparency, constant communication, and strong ethical standards because your peace of mind matters. Licensed, bonded, and insured, they're here for you 24/7, 365 days a year. Call 855-4ECG now. That's 855-432-4669. Or visit their website at emergencyconstructiongroup.com and let Emergency Construction Group put your life back together one step at a time. That's Emergency Construction Group. Your satisfaction is their passion.
Hi there, Tammy Scully here from Talk Time with Tammy and Friends. Join me and my sidekicks Nancy and Becky for valuable lifestyle tips and unique views and insights on interesting topics and everyday situations, providing nonstop fun and chuckles for all. Get the scoop on consumer news, deep dive on current events, and learn about the newest economic trends, from exercise and gardening to music, travel, recipes, sports, pets, real estate, media, and everything in between. And it's all sprinkled with a healthy helping of bad dad jokes and interesting fun facts to boot. Tune in Mondays through Thursdays from 2 to 4 p.m. for a little fun, frolic, and infotainment. Join us, won't you?
On WRMN.
Most people out here think that taking care of one another is important. And most people would step up for a neighbor going through a tough time. Most people around here help out friends and family when they need it. But the funny thing is, most of us won't look for help when we need it. If you're struggling with mental health, you should know that there are resources out there that can help. And it's okay to talk about it if you need to. One place to get started with information is loveyourmindtoday.org. Loveyourmindtoday.org offers a range of guides, instructions, and insights for dealing with difficult situations or getting through a tough time. If you're struggling with mental health, get the help you need, because most people out here really care. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube live channel. Okay, so that was a great commercial right before this. I feel I don't have to do the lead-in for real, but I'll do the lead-in for the text. Why doesn't someone text us at 505-926-1410? 505-926-1410. Text us with a question, how you feel about this. We're talking about some restorative justice and the 14th Amendment. And, all right, so Paul.
Just Brendan is out there. He says hi. And Dennis says, he keeps telling everybody, stay out of the legal system. That's your best bet.
Absolutely.
Right about that.
Absolutely. I did 27 years as a detective, and I'll tell you one thing. I'm terrified of the legal system. Absolutely terrified. Totally. When it comes to me, I see it's totally unpredictable. I'm like, ugh. You know, I don't want to scare people. You know, that's not what the show's supposed to be about. But I will admit that the reason that I don't commit crimes, or that they don't catch me committing crimes, is because I don't want to be involved in the legal system so much as a parking ticket. Unfortunately, I have no faith in the system. I got a little faith in the system when I went out for a buddy, but even though I had faith that the system worked, he was pre-punished. Because you got to pay for a lawyer. When you have assets, when you've worked, when you have a bank account, when you have a little bit of savings, let's say you're saving up so, you could buy for your daughter's wedding. You're saving up for your daughter's wedding, and you're putting money away, and you get mixed up in the criminal justice system for whatever reason, and now you got to hire an attorney because they say, hey, you have assets. We're not giving you a public defender. You could afford it. And you spend your kid's wedding money to keep you out of prison on BS. No one's ever going to give you that money back. You could sue, you could do whatever. Good luck. All right, that's just spending more money. Who's going to take your case? That state, Cleveland Dennis is absolutely right. If you want if everyone worked very hard to stay outside of the legal system, what a peaceful place it would be, huh, Paul?
Absolutely.
It's just some people they absolutely don't care. And the reason they don't care is because for us, for regular working people out there, any working people out there, decent people to just mind your own business, make the most of yourself, live with what you have, right? For them, we have something to lose. We have skin in the game, all right? We have skin in the game. We have something to lose. And we see that we're afraid of exactly what an activist judge looking at you and saying, well, you're the problem with society, so we're going to give you the maximum sentence, even though I've never given the maximum sentence to anyone on this, but you're the first in front of me, so I'm giving it, you're the first of your type in front of me on this offense, so I'm going to give you the maximum sentence to make a point. I'm terrified of that. But the other ones, for them, it's a minor inconvenience. No one's saying, hey, you don't have any assets, right? Well, they got the clothing they're wearing, they got their bling, they got everything else, right? Sell that, get a private attorney. But they get a public defender. That's costing the state money. It's a minor inconvenience for them if they are finally prosecuted and they do any time. I said do. They go and they do any time in jail, right? It's still like a minor inconvenience. They're not losing their house. They're not losing their job. It's so they continue to do it because it's no longer.
It's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, it's not a deterrent.
Right, it's factored into their business plan.
Yeah, so you have a society that's peaceful, living with each other, producing everything, and then you have those living outside of those societal norms. That's what prison is. It's a person that chooses, right, to violate society norms, the laws, right? And what they're saying to everyone is, I choose not to be part of your society. So we say, fine, here, go to prison. There, you're not part of our society anymore. You're in prison. And keep them in there until they're willing to be part of society. That way, everyone else gets to produce. There's always going to be people that just don't care. They just don't care. And to continue this on, okay, we got a government and a legal system. There's one thing called community policing. Caps. But what community policing really is, right, is I would walk my baby down Archer Avenue in Brighton Park, all right? And my oldest, when she was a baby, she hated hats. Oh, she did not want to wear a hat. And she would pull her hat off, and every Polish lady would practically beat me with their canes or their umbrellas, or they'd come screaming at me, put a hat on that child, put a hat on that child. That's community policing. Now, did I go and call the phone and say, this lady assaulted me? I thought she was going to hit me with her cane and everything and have the little old lady locked up?
No,
because I would look like the police back in the day. They'd look at me like the jerk I be. They're like, "Hey, are you kidding me, dude?" Now, fast forward, there's my favorite grocery store. The only one I could stay in for more than like 5 minutes because every other grocery store in the world gives me heebie-jeebies. I'm really not good in crowds anymore. Just not good in crowds. And I just feel crowded and gross. Really nice lady and everything. And the police write her a ticket because some guy's in the store acting the fool. But he goes to the police department, he screams bloody murder about this and everything, and the police write her a ticket. And now she's never been involved with the police. She's terrified. She's terrified. She has to hire a private attorney, go into court. Person didn't even show up. Ha ha, very funny. She already punished my friend. They already punished my friend, by having to hire a private attorney. And the person's walking around there. Back in the day, that guy come in and say, oh, the clerk at the grocery store was being mean to me. We'd be like, get out of here. Don't go to that grocery store anymore, dude. But no, they're the victim, And Paul, do you think the pendulum's going to swing back the other way?
It used to, and it traditionally goes back, but I don't think it's going to go back to the way where it traditionally was. I think it might get more to the middle to be maybe neutral, but, I can't see it going back to more like what it was, more rational timing and stuff like that. I just don't see it, but, I don't want to be pessimistic either. I want to be positive. And, we could hope, but, again, you just don't know, and another thing is, I have friends that are teachers, and they have these assignments and they have these things, and, they have this assignment to talk about maybe, say, ethical business practices and stuff like that. And it has nothing to do with the United States. It has nothing to do with the United States. But yet you might get a respondent that views at it, like my grandparents were slaves and, this is exactly what my grandparents went through. And it has nothing to do with that. Everybody looks at something from the perspective of their prejudgments and things like that. Like it's kind of funny, but I have a friend who was a policeman. He was injured, and he had to move to another state, but he wanted to finish his credits, and he was taking this class, and it goes to your idea of the diversity, equity and inclusion. And they make these people he needed one class, and to get a degree, he had to take this class, and you would not believe the crazy stuff they were telling him. All right. And it's all false, and what was happening was, I happened to be with him a couple of times when he was, taking the lectures and stuff like that, and all this stuff and craziness. It was just crazy, And he said, I can't. I'm not going to finish this degree. I can't do it. And I said, no. I said, you know what? Let me take a look at this stuff. Let me give you some suggestions, So anyway, and they go back to the same well. It's the same well, And you had to write about the famous person in history, and it's always Martin Luther King, Mandela, Jesse Jackson. I said, well, why don't you break the mold? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, you mind if I do some research for you and collect it? And it turns out we even talked about it on the show. There was a black astronaut from Chicago who, unfortunately, he was also a pilot trainer. He was killed, but he got a doctorate in aeronautical engineering, and he's the guy that all the shuttle data was based on from his doctorate. And this guy, even though he was an astronaut, he never went into space, but he was part of the Corps, gets killed in a prior accident. But it's because of him. And he was black, and he was from Chicago. I said, write about him. And he wrote about him. And the professor, who was, a minority, and, they had never heard of this. And yet this guy's Caucasian. They go to the same well. They talk about the same thing, but yet they don't, if people knew about this guy, he grew up in the housing projects, he was a genius. Okay. That would inspire people. But we don't do that anymore. We just go to the same thing. We go to, they're poor. There was nobody poorer than this guy. Goes to the Air Force and things like that. Nobody was as downtrodden as this guy. Yet he didn't stick any little old lady up. He didn't bust any windows. He worked his way. He did it the old-fashioned way. He got into a system which I don't think was too egalitarian when he was in it in the 50s and 60s, and he rose to the top. And that's what we should be talking about. Not some mope that's knocking people over and then becomes a community activist 2 years later, okay? We don't talk about people that mean something. We talk about the same crap all the time. Yep. And that's why we're not getting ahead. What we're doing is we're walking in the same rut, and it's going to get harder and harder for us to get a ladder to climb out of it because we don't spend time doing that.
You know what? And I've got to say it's happening a little bit. In Chicago, it's happened slowly. And to talk about, one of the things I want to lead into is you talk about equal protection under the law. So now we're going to have federal officers coming in to Chicago. I don't know if the National Guard's going to be with them or which National Guard, or federalized troops are going to be coming down, like the Shore Patrol from Great Lakes. They're federal troops. Some MPs or military police coming in, from one of the other forts or whatever to provide protection. So let's say you got two 18-year-old soldiers on active duty, and they're escorting a immigration customs enforcement, and he's got a search warrant for something that was smuggled in. Let's just say something as thing as fake Rolex watches, in a warehouse. They got through customs, but there's a ban on them, so they got a warrant for this, and he's going there, and all of a sudden he's jumped by a crowd that says, "Hey, this guy is ICE," and they outnumber the two poor guard guys who may or may not be carrying ammunition or are very unlikely to shoot a citizen, right? They've been indoctrinated not to do that for this. And then the Chicago police are standing right there with a sergeant and a lieutenant and, 4 guys with them saying, "Oh, the mayor said we can't help those guys out." So now they're not giving them equal protection under the law because they are citizens and they are people in Chicago. They may even be residents of Chicago that aren't going to be protected because of the mayor, what the mayor said. So he's violating the 14th Amendment because here's the thing, what they got. These aren't mercenaries, Paul, right? They're citizens too. The police are citizens too. They're community members, right? You take a cross-cut of all the police, right? And you match them up a cross-cut of Protestant clergy and see who comes out smelling better. Take all the preachers, the West Side and South Side preachers, right? The storefront preachers. Take them all, match their criminal records against the police. Have them all take psychological exams, see who does better. Right? But here they are, what you call it, not besmirching, they're demonizing. demonizing the federal agents. They're going to demonize the National Guard. They're going to they've already demonized the police, and they're having a hard time digging themselves out of that. So where do you get off saying, hey, if you misbehave in any way, we're going to make sure you don't do it? Instead, they're saying, hey, if you misbehave against these guys, we don't care. I think, that's a gross violation of the equal protection under the law. So then I hope nothing bad happens. I really do, because look at so now what happens when you enforce the law? When you get someone in there and says, no, we're going to just enforce the law. How do homicides drop?
By enforcing the law.
Yeah. And all of a sudden in Washington, D.C., you get in there and you have someone with an iron fist, right, comes in and says, we're just going to enforce the law. And if the current community leaders, the mayor, who's actually federal, right, all these federal properties, if they don't do it, we're coming in with the higher-ups and we're going to have them do it. It was just yesterday I was watching when they picked up the two kids that murdered the intern, not intentionally, but they threw, 70-something rounds into a crowded area? And they got them, and they're going to charge them as adults. But they're only 17. They're juveniles. You're going to hear teenage and everything from the mainstream media, from the legacy press. Oh, they didn't have an idea what they were just funning, they were just wilding. But no, they got long criminal records. And obviously, the social system has failed them completely. So here's a choice. We put the two 17-year-olds in prison, or we take every social worker that ever talked to them and we throw them in prison. What do you think the social workers will vote for?
They'd say that the youths got to do their time and learn.
That's right. Because, hey, scream about it all you want, but you failed them. You're a failure. Yeah, a lot of the crime is going to be pushed out to Baltimore, but Baltimore's screaming for, more police enforcement. Well, you're the mayor of your city. Make your police do it. Back them up. Someone files a civil suit against you, file another civil. Here, the biggest cottage industry in Chicago, suing the police. You're a lawyer, you go and sue the police. Oh my God, the city settles for $18 million, right? And the mayor approves it, and all the aldermen get together, they all approve it and everything. They pay the victim $18 million. And the lawyer gets $6 million, and then he gets another $6 million that he loaned to the people in the first place, and then they blow through the other $6 million in a week, right? But when the lawyer gets that $6 million, he kicks back $3 million to the politicians through, political donations through his company. So the cities, it's always in the politicians' interest to settle. A lot of these cases, the city's paying money to people were absolutely 100% wrong. They were wrong, and they're getting paid for it. Now, if you countersue it and get a jury, a normal jury, right, you're likely to win. But what are you going to get off the people? Oh, you don't sue them. You sue their lawyers for frivolous lawsuits that they should have known better. But it's a cottage industry where that money just gets laundered back to the politicians. And who's paying for it? Well, we are.
Taxpayers.
We are, because the politicians pull all the toilets out of their house and don't pay property tax.
Correct.
So taxes go up on us. Oh, we got a budget deficit, right? So now we got to raise the taxes. But you said you wouldn't do that. Why do you have a budget deficit? If you said you wouldn't do taxes, didn't you do a budget? Because they were paying out money, all these frivolous lawsuits. And then who looks bad? Because of this police officer's action, the city had to pay out $18 million. Well, he did his job. So I'm kind of ranting here. having been on the other end of that, you know, so when they talk about, when you get to the prosecutors, right, with the head state's attorney, right, and they set policy, right, Paul?
That's correct.
So you work for the head state's attorney. There's one, and you're an assistant state's attorney. And you got the Cook County state's attorney or whatever, they set the policy. And they said, oh, well, they were elected by the public. What do you think the turnout is for a local election?
23.5%.
If that. And how many of those are from the nursing homes?
Maybe 4%.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's not, you can't even, in any decent organization, that's not even a quorum. You know, you can't, that's not a, what's the word for it? A mandate. That's not a mandate, you know, a mandate to do whatever you want because you were elected in, right? I think people will laugh, but if we just vote harder, you know, I mean, that's the way you're going to do it.
Vote.
Just vote. You got to get the people out there to vote, right? And get out there and if you got a tough election, a real tough election where it's really close between the two parties, right? And you're not going to, if you're not absolutely sure, you're not going to throw money away on that, all right? But if you have ulterior motives and it's not even close, you'll throw money at that thing, at that person, at that party or person, and they will seemingly be beholden to you. The more people out there voting is always better because then you have more of a mandate from the people, but the only qualified people to vote. You know? All right, we'll be back for the second half of the show because the White Sox. Want to read some action-packed, exciting pulp fiction? Read the works of Michael Tooman, now featuring the international crime thriller, I Married a Bot Madam. Available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle editions. The paperback is also available at other book retailers. Check out Michael Tooman's webpage at Scilink.net. That's Papa, Sierra, Yankee, Lima, India, November, Kilo, dot, November, Echo, Tango. Join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube live channel.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 1 o'clock.
Decline since the pandemic. So who's to blame for the weak jobs numbers?
U.S. employers added just 22,000 jobs last month. Democrats blame Trump policies for damaging the economy. The president targeted the Fed for not lowering its benchmark interest rate. Speaking with SRN News, economist Richard Stern says the Trump tariffs are dampening.
With the lack of confidence that businesses have in making investment decisions.
But he also said residual Biden administration policies are just as much to blame.
The Biden administration continued to expand regulations in every sector of the economy, making it hard for businesses that already exist to continue functioning and being in business, employing people.
Richard Stern with the Heritage Foundation, George Williams, Washington.
Attorneys for ICE say they intend to send Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the African nation of Eswatini after he expressed a fear of deportation to Uganda. The Salvadoran man lived in Maryland for more than a decade before he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador a few months ago. His deportation set off a series of contentious court battles. Abrego Garcia has filed for asylum in the U.S. President Trump has signed an executive order renaming the Department of Defense as the Department of War, a title last used in 1947.
We won the First World War, we won the Second World War, we won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War.
Congress must approve the name change. Former Major League Baseball player and manager Davey Johnson has died at the age of 82. He won a total of 3 World Series titles. More at townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind, to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my 2 sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-226-5454. That's 800-226-5454. 800-226-5454.
Tesla is asking its investors to approve a proposed compensation package for CEO Elon Musk that could be worth almost $1 trillion.
In a regulatory filing, Tesla says if approved by shareholders, Musk would be handed shares worth as much as 12% of the company in a dozen separate packages if the electric car maker meets certain performance targets, including massive increases in car production, share prices, and operating profit. It could make Musk the first trillion-dollar executive. The payoff is in shares and not cash. Those goals are extreme. In one case, Musk would have to convince investors in the stock market Tesla is worth $2 trillion in total, double what they value it today. I'm Ed Donahue.
Former President Biden has decided to build his presidential library in Delaware. He has tapped a group of former aides, friends, and political allies to begin fundraising and finding a site. News and analysis at townhall.com. A weak jobs report sent stocks lower to close out the trading week.
Stocks gave up an early gain on Wall Street and closed lower Friday. The S&P 500 fell 0.3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.5%. The Nasdaq Composite fell less than 0.1%. The losses follow a discouraging update on the job market. Wall Street is questioning whether the U.S. job market has slowed by just enough to push the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates, or has it slowed too much, signaling an economic downturn. The action was more decisive in the bond market, where yields tumbled following the latest economic update. Damian Troisi, New York.
The CEO of McDonald's is criticizing the restaurant industry for allowing tipped wages, which let managers pay servers less than the minimum wage as long as customer tips make up the difference. In many states, servers are paid as little as $2.13 per hour. More on these stories at townhall.com.
At Britain's Touchless Car Wash, they know life gets busy. That's why they're here 24/7 to keep your car looking spotless, fast, and easy. Their advanced brush-free wash technology delivers a sparkling clean without a single scratch, because they treat your car like it's their own. Here's the best part. Right now, you can get a free car wash just for joining their text club. It's simple. Just text BRITT to 30400, and your first wash is on them. Britain's Touchless Car Wash has 2 convenient locations, 1923 Larkin Avenue in Elgin and 555 Willow in West Dundee. They're proud to keep your car clean while giving back to our community. Text BRITT to 30400. That's BRITT to 30400. Now for your free car wash, and see why Britain's touchless car wash is the fast, gentle, and reliable choice.
Fixed Bayonets, comrades, we're back for the second half of the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show. The second hour is brought to you by the Chicago White Sox. Okay, so I got a few shout-outs here. One is for one of my regular listeners, Gary. He's a woodworker. Very fancy stuff, does some very fancy stuff. Check out the webpage, www.boxnmor.etsy.com. boxnmore.etsy.com. Great woodworking stuff. The other shout out here is for two of my regular listeners. They also graduated from DLI with me. That would be Jeff Shaw. He's a comedian. If you ever get a chance to see one of his shows, go to it. All right, because he's funny. And you know what? If whatever show you're looking for, you're going to get, because Jeff can read a room. All right, and it's highbrow stuff too. It's good. Right. Then my buddy Troy. Same class as me. He was actually he was my squad leader at the language school. Good guy, Troy Christensen. He's out there. He's making knives up in Minnesota. He's retired from his job, but he still works his forge. So he has the Thunder. I got to get my wallet out. Thunder Forge. See, here we go. Thunderhead Forge. Yeah, so he's the Thunderhead Forge. I'm not going to give out his phone number or anything, but if you see him on Facebook, all right, so Thunderhead Forge and Troy Christensen, he does a lot of stuff, all right, a lot of good knives and stuff. I told him you should be on Forged and Fire, apply for Forged and Fire. Maybe one day he'll do it. He'll do good because he's a very, very hardworking guy. All right, so the other one is Monday, 6 o'clock, 4501 25th, Post 104's first meeting of the fraternal year. All right, so Monday, 6 p.m., 4501 on 25th in Schiller Park. Schiller Park, American Legion, Post 104. We're going to have our first meeting of the year. Everyone's welcome. And on the 27th, that's a Saturday, after my radio show, we're going to have at the same place, 4501 on 25th, we're going to have a Oktoberfest, because everyone knows Oktoberfest happens in September. So it's September 27th. And that is to benefit the Anger School. The Anger School is over there at Grand in Mannheim, and it's a special needs school. So this Oktoberfest is supported by the Knights of Columbus and our American Legion. We're co-sponsoring it. All the proceeds are going to go to the Anger School. So, and this is our, instead of our Knights of Columbus Council 4456, you'll see a lot of Knights of Columbus out there this weekend and next weekend doing the Tootsie Roll Drive. They're not homeless guys. They're guys doing Tootsie Roll drives. If you carry some extra change this weekend, so you give it to them, get a Tootsie Roll, and show that you supported the ID drive, intellectual disability. So they support the Special Olympics, but it's local. So whoever you're giving to, that money's going to go to a local special needs charity. All right, so those are my shout-outs for today. I might do one more at the beginning of the next last quarter. So, Paul, what did you think about over the break?
Well, no, I was thinking about a couple of different things. When we talk about this, and I've said this before to other people, no one likes to have the military involved in something, and everybody makes a big deal about this, but don't forget that it's our elected leaders that caused this. Without them and their inaction or turning their backs on it or their prosecutorial discretion or whatever, whatever caused it, it's here now. And, the public needs to stand up and tell them, we don't like living like this. We don't want to live like this, Could you hold on a second?
Sure. All right. Yeah, no, I would not, I don't want to live like that. And people need to stand up. One of the things is, though, how you stand up when the politicians will just release the goons on you, which is what they're doing now. When you don't have to post a cash bail for a heinous offense, when you're only given super secret probation for the 5th time for another heinous offense, you're one of the goons that the politicians and the people in control count on to be out there to cause such chaos and have everyone living in fear. And then as a politician, you're able to get there. Only I could solve your fear. All right. They're misunderstood. We got the special thing for them, and they're not doing anything for them to stop that. They love having them there, but they're convincing you that they're doing something. The only thing you could really do is put them in jail, but then they don't have the goon. The goon's in jail. So that's one of the things there. What was I saying? So a federal judge threw an injunction again for you. He declared that using federal forces, Department of, I don't know if he signed that or not, but the department formerly known as Defense, because I don't know if he signed Department of War yet. All right. So using Department of Defense federal troops, all right, for law enforcement, all right, he said that that's unconstitutional. Well, yeah, but that's not what's being done. The troops aren't being used for law enforcement. The troops are being used to protect law enforcement. So I've gone into housing projects by myself, right? Just because maybe I'm too arrogant, or maybe I knew what I was there for, or I was just tactically alert, right? I didn't require an entire TAC team, I didn't call SWAT in to do anything like that, right? But there are times where the police need some protection. There's what, 3 million in the city and only the big lie, 12,000 police officers. Or 13,000. Ones that are actually,
they haven't had 12 or 13,000 since at least the 80s, probably.
Yeah. Anyways, you don't have the force. These guys, they're already working triple overtime. They're already out there. They're tired. They're overworked. They're having their days off. Their holidays canceled. Everything canceled because there's one fire to put out after another. Right. So you send the guy with law enforcement powers in, but he's got 2 guys protecting him. Who's going to mess with them now? Because nobody need a big crowd, right?
Right.
So they're there to protect. They're not there to arrest anyone, and they haven't arrested anyone. And I don't think anyone's been charged by the Department of Defense with any crimes yet, have they? From all this stuff, because those were the ones that would be arresting them. And they're not given sworn police powers. I don't think they're being sworn in as federal agents, because that would take them out of the Department of Defense and put them in the Department of Justice. So when the judge basically was Captain Obvious. But
I think that he wasn't. He's coming from the other side anyway. I don't think he's. I think there was no question as to how he was going to rule. I mean, you know what strikes me though as funny. I watched those riots. There's, I pretty much watch YouTube content people now. There's a guy called Dad's Gone Wild, and then there was another place that I watch, Agenda Free TV, and they were getting live feeds from that. And you know, they brought horses out, and they were staging the horses to go somewhere in Los Angeles, you know. And the horses were forming up, and I was watching it, and I was wondering what they were going to do. So then they were going to move a crowd, and they brought all these units, okay, and they all proceeded to go, you know, 1 or 2 blocks up, and they didn't leave anybody to watch the cars. Well, that presents another problem too, because if 2 people are overwhelmed, that's not going to do you too much good anyway. But all the cars got wrecked, okay, and that wasn't a protest. That was a riot. That was an uncontrollable riot that years ago would have never been allowed to get to that. Okay, and we wouldn't be for a while they're adverse to use tear gas, but now they're starting to use tear gas regularly, and they were averse to use non-lethal force, but now they're using it regularly. But politicians, if they're going to commit to a law enforcement act, need to get out of it. They need to let the police do their job. Yeah. And they let those ICE agents to fend for themselves for the better part of an hour on purpose, and they admit that. And they were hoping that something would happen to the ICE agents.
Okay, going back to the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. Are they not citizens?
Well, they are.
Then why didn't they protect them?
Because they're doing a political agenda.
Were those ICE agents committing a crime?
They were following a law.
A lawful order, right?
Well, not only that, they were following the law. We've talked. I mean, you don't have to be on the border to do border activities. You can go miles from the border.
Immigration and customs enforcement.
Correct. And they let those people to drift. Okay. And again, you know, there might very well be some folks, you know, that are nice, that are working at the corner bakery. Okay. But again, like you pointed out, the reason why these people are getting picked up is we've let all these other criminals in. And had we stopped that, had we not tried for whatever purpose, I mean, it's my belief that they let all these people in to try to influence the last election and future elections by getting them here and then trying to change the law, which kind of backfired on them. And then, you know, I was watching this morning, you know, and it's true, you know, Trump would have been really advised to fund more police. But he gave us funds, they gave us funds, and for the last 3 years, they've been housing these criminals. And we've been housing these folks where that money could have been used for social welfare programs for our people that are homeless, our people that need help. Instead of, you know, why are these people here? I mean, you know, they're not really working. They're not working from what I see. And,
well, they are.
Why are they here?
They are. Some of them are. It's all right. So
not really. I mean, I see the same people, although much less since Trump's the president. I see the same people selling stuff that from Walgreens on the corner.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you're talking about, all right, working. All right, so I'm talking slave labor, all right? So
I'm talking about the last batch that came in over the last 18, 20 months.
Yeah, those ladies out there, even a lot of those guys out there, and a lot of the guys pushing the corn carts and the popsicle carts and the ice cream carts and the taco carts, all right, and a lot of the gut trucks, all right. There's people that have control of them and that house them or maybe know where they're housed, and they pick them up, and these people buy that box of candy off the provider, like he's a dope dealer, right? They buy the box of candy, and then any money they get above and beyond what they paid him, they keep, right? So if they sell the first candy bar for $30 and they paid $30 for that box, every other candy bar they sell is kind of profit for them, but the guy selling the boxes has already made his profit, and he's got like 50 or 60 of them out there, right?
Well, what I've noticed is there appears to be an enforcer nearby them.
Yes.
And I think that, I think that the first thing we should do is find out who that enforcer is.
Absolutely. But you know what?
I think we should take him out of the picture for whatever reason, whether he's illegal too, or he's Tren de Agua, or he's MS-13, or whatever he is. I think he should go first.
Well, yeah.
And then maybe find out about this woman and very often it's the same one I see. She's got the kid on her back like he's in a baby carrier.
Yeah, the papoose.
Yeah. And it's sad because that can't be right. I mean, that has to be in violation of some law. And then you brought it up several shows ago. If these guys are here, that's another point. Let me get to this because now I'm really mad. You brought this up. These people have to register for the draft, and they're not, and that's a crime. Okay, and as I was telling you in the last segment, I was kind of helping this guy out, and you'd never be surprised. And first of all, I think they're stupid for mentioning this, and I know this has been mentioned in other meetings. These people at these colleges, they come up and they say, well, I'm undocumented, or and you have some of the professors. Well, first of all, for me to get a job, I have to prove I'm a citizen. After my father died, I was working as a crossing guard here. I had to prove I was a citizen. Okay. But now we've got educators who are not citizens. And if they're not a citizen, okay, they can't validly have a social security number, okay, because they're not on the path. They're not. How can they work? And then you're going to tell me we're giving them a pension? I mean, but me, we had to document ourselves. So we got all. That's what I mean. It's government. And it's not only selective enforcement, it's government actually participating in the fraud.
Oh, yeah.
It's government actually committing the crime. All right. And yet, when he tries to send troops in to prevent that, you have elected officials who owe their allegiance to who now? Us. We put them in.
They're supposed
we don't
to.
Work for them.
They're supposed
they
to.
Work for us.
Absolutely. But right. As soon as they get elected in, they're like, suckers.
Well, unfortunately, maybe that guy should be the first guy picked up. And maybe that guy is an accessory to, whether he's, down in Springfield in the mansion or whether he's in the city hall. Maybe that guy needs to.
You know why those guys need to go? Because they're slave traders. They're flat out slave traders.
Well, not only that, they're breaking the law.
Yeah, no. Slavery is not legal in the United States, so we know they're breaking law. But the way they're breaking the law, all right, driving 70 in a 55, breaking the law, right? But what they're doing is they're taking advantage of people that are the lowest they're not the lowest form. They're the most vulnerable, all right? They're taking advantage of very vulnerable people. Like you said, never let a disaster go to waste. So all of a sudden, you got all this labor walking around looking for anything they could do for a nickel or dime or to make themselves better off. So you organize this labor, you take them, and they're vulnerable because, hey, you're illegal. And a lot of these, they're not very educated. They're up here because they're not very educated. They're low skill set and everything. They're very vulnerable people. So anything someone that speaks their language tells them, especially if they're a citizen in the United States, right, and tells them, listen, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to throw you in alligator Alcatraz for 50 years, and then maybe they'll deport you, will take your baby away and all this stuff. So they got these vulnerable people they're taking advantage of. Then they give them a no-skill job, walking on the street corner, selling candy, selling ice cream pops or whatever, right? And they make the big fortune out of that. And they got a lot of these people, so absolutely they should go over them. But on what's been going on for years is I own a company or a restaurant, right? And I can get away with not paying unemployment insurance and not paying, certain other things like taxes and everything, because I say all my employees are family members. So I get my kids, right? They're all their social security numbers, and I say they all work for me. None of them have ever got their hands dirty because I hire illegals under their social security numbers. And I'm saving the taxes on that, but I'm also paying into my kids' social security through that when they're not even working. Now, all of a sudden, my slave labor force, I might be paying them some sort of a wage, right? My slave labor force gets deported. Now, either my kids have to work or I got to pay someone a living wage. And for me making $500,000 a year, I'm suddenly only making $150,000 a year because I got to pay people living wages because I can't have my kids working there anymore or working there at all. My kids won't work there at all. Right? So there's another thing that goes on for all these other businesses where you see, how the hell has this guy been mowing my lawn for 10 years and doesn't speak a word of English yet?
Well, you're right, but I've heard from tradespeople, I've heard the opposite too. I heard that there were some do-gooders over in the churches over out east over there in the Beverly area, and a lot of the wives told their husbands, we need to hire some of these folks. So the guys end up hiring the folks. I heard this anecdotally from a couple of people where they hired the people and then they had jobs to do. They brought them out to the site and the guy said, well, you're not paying us what you're paying, your regular worker. And the guy goes, yeah, because he's a skilled worker. And they said, well, we're not going to work. Now, mind you, he's got a job that has to be done. He needs like 4 or 5 guys. He's only got 1 or 2 regular workers. They said, we're not gonna work till you pay us.
All
so
right.
then
we'll be back.
Okay.
Political party poopers got you down?
Shake it off and join me, Dennis Sonar Green, every weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. on WRMN for A Political Talk Show, where we cut through the doom and gloom with a focus on America first, constitutional values, and a populist perspective that puts you, the citizen, at the center of the conversation. At WRMN, the talk of the town, we're not afraid to challenge the status quo and bring you the straight talk you need. Whether you're frustrated with the political establishment or looking for a clear, some nonsense analysis, this show has you covered. Tune in. Let's take on the issues together with a fresh, unfiltered approach. Catch us every weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. on WRMN, A Political Talk Show. WRMN, the talk of the town.
Is diabetes keeping you from enjoying life's special moments? At US Med, we understand the challenges you face, and we're here to help.
With US Med, I can finally manage my diabetes without it managing me.
US Med offers a wide range of services to simplify your diabetes care. Personalized care plans, convenient access to cutting-edge diabetes tech, and knowledgeable support. Plus, we'll check your insurance so your diabetes care may be covered at little or no cost to you.
With US Med, I feel confident and control of my diabetes. I can finally live my life to the fullest.
Don't let diabetes hold you back. Choose US Med and experience better birthdays, better adventures, better anniversaries, and better everything. Call now. US Med. Better service, better care. 800-785-1673. 800-785-1673. 800-785-1673. That's 800-785-1673.
We ask parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
If you build a relationship, then it becomes easier. If you build trust, it becomes easier. As a parent, you want what's best for your child. To give them the love that a child needs. It's probably the best thing you can do for a teenager.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Before the weather gets too cold, it's time to finish up those outdoor jobs. That's why ComEd wants you to know that electricity can jump from a power line to you and to the tools you're using. So maintain a safe distance from any power lines. You can also call ComEd at 1-800-EDISON-1 to have those power lines de-energized the next time you do any work around them. Stay smart, stay safe, stay back. ComEd, powering lives.
Get ready for Around the House every Saturday night from 5 to 7 p.m. on WRMN AM 1410. If you're a homeowner or contractor looking to tackle those projects that feel a bit too big, this is the show for you. Join Eric along with his knowledgeable guests as they dive deep into everything from DIY renovations to creating a healthy home environment. We'll provide you with the tools and tips you need to complete your projects with confidence and ease. But it's not all work and no play. We believe in having fun. Our passion for home improvement shines through as we help you save time, money, and reduce the stress of DIY. So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, don't miss Around the House. Tune in every Saturday night and let's tackle those home projects together.
Fix Bayonets, comrades. How you doing, Paul?
Good.
Okay.
Before, I was getting a package from Taiwan, so I guess the tariffs have been lifted as far as Taiwan. I had a sign for it before when the bell rang at the from the post office.
You mean the island formerly known as Formosa?
I do.
Okay.
there's a gentleman there that makes an attachment for an M7 bayonet that's supposed to be the best one in the world. So I actually ordered it and took a while to get here, but it was held up in customs, but it finally came through.
Because it's an assault weapon.
Yes.
It's a beast in an assault weapon. Anyway, so, yeah, the thing vulnerable, right? And I've heard this a lot too. Some of these guys will go out and get picked up. You know, they have no legal status to work. Apparently, the Supreme Court has decided that people that are here, except for prisoners of war, so far, right, have a legal status. And if they're charged criminally, right, then they have the right to a lawyer, right? And they can't afford one, so it's going to be a public defender, which is probably the big delay. But if they're not charged criminally, if it's only a civil deportation hearing, right, then they have no right to a lawyer, their own lawyer. Someone's going to have to hire one, or there's going to have to some company out there working pro bono. So you go and you get up a bunch of laborers. Maybe they have a skill set, maybe they don't. Maybe they've been working here a while and they're really good with cement. Maybe they're really good with bricklaying, right? But this guy brings them in and he says, well, I want you to lay me a new sidewalk or a new deck and back out of cement. And they're not union, all right? But he gets them in there. He gets the cement delivered. They smooth everything out. They do all that. They dig everything out. They frame it up and they put it there. And then he goes, well, thank you very much. Here's a nickel, on your way. You know? Now, what recourse do they have? What status do they have if they go up? All right, so getting into the minutia here, into the weeds, real weeds on this. So I admit that I'm working here illegally. All right, I go to the police and I says I did illegal labor for money, right, that I was supposed to get paid by this guy here. We laid all that, and he didn't pay us. So he stole a theft of services, right? But can I profit from a crime?
No.
So can I make that report?
No.
If I could make the report, I know a lot of police departments that would take it. They might even take it seriously. But now I go.
Well, the better question is, we used to run into this problem. They would have to get an agreement with immigration, particularly if it was like a big crime, so as not to so you'd have the witness. But really, once you present yourself and bring yourself forward, you're subject to being deported. So I mean, and believe it or not, as we know, the guy you're charging is going to go to his guys and try. That in that case, I bet you the politicians will be seeking to deport somebody, particularly if that guy was a big contributor to them, that the illegal employer. So in that case, you would see the migrants being deported rather quickly, I would imagine.
If they make those claims.
Right. So you would have them. So that's why that goes nowhere. That's why they call them doubly victimized. But, again, the stories that I was hearing, though, was that they extorted the employer, and then the employer paid him for the day, and then they never brought him back to the job site again, and they told their wives, find something else, give money to the church, get them food, clothing. I'm not hiring them again. So I mean, they actually, they were running a scam, which is interesting because I'm sure they ran it in their own country before that. So I mean, it's just kind of wild. But again, it's a problem we should not have had. It's a problem that was engineered by some politicians to benefit something, and it's a problem we should not be having. And it's something we shouldn't have to be dealing with.
The massive biggest difficulty is, I would say, if you were to have 90% of politicians sit against an average 12-year-old chess player, he would beat them all. The 12-year-old.
The 12-year-old.
Because they don't have, they are incapable of seeing, we have billionaires incapable of seeing secondary and tertiary effects of their policies that they make on a whim, right? So, or you say you make a gun law, you make a policy. Well, what are the weird ones? The assault weapons thing, and now wait, you could put a bayonet on an M1. And every guy in the Legion carries an M1, so does that make an assault weapon and make us all felons?
Shouldn't.
Yeah, I know, but they say, hey, if we bring in these illegal aliens, right, or we bring in undocumented, we don't bring them in. We open the borders. And then we say, we love immigrants.
Actually, that's not true. Okay. Because we used to call them charities before, but now the big word is NGOs. They had these NGOs go down there, and they had them go in that whatever gap it is, Darien Gap. And then they were helping bring these people up from South America. And they were giving them maps, and then they were giving them cell phones, and then they were giving them contact information. And then, so the government was funding these NGOs, and the NGOs were getting involved with the local politicians, and they were saying this and that. And then they were giving them, then they were deciding where to send them. I mean, we've seen the hidden rooms at all the different airports and that were being blocked off and stuff like that. And then what they did is, and I don't know how you justify this, because we've even talked about it at the beginning of the show. You've got the local constabulary being pitted against the federal government, or the which is for everybody. So you've got your local police, which are either negligently, blindly, or turning their backs on their responsibilities in pursuit of a federal law. And then, you've got them, you've enlisted them as to being, as we would say, if you're not with us, you're against us. So if they're not with the program to prevent this, then they're part of the problem.
Well,
so and then that presents a problem for me. It's real hard to respect those people later on when they cry wolf. When whatever politician they gets thrown out of office, and now they're
well, they're doing it right. They're doing it right.
but it's not uncommon for things to change, and these people now to be considered to be accessories. So, I mean, shouldn't their unions be speaking? Shouldn't they be going to their
police unions?
Yeah.
You made it funny there, Paul.
Coming forward, I mean,
you would think.
You would think. You really would.
Here is the anxiety, the PTSD of being a police officer. All right, you sign up. There are always the flyers out there. All right. But you sign up to enforce the law. You say, hey, I'm a good guy. I can enforce the law. All right? I want to enforce the law. And you see what's good for people. You're in there in the mix. You're down on the ground floor. But you're just a police officer. You don't have any connections or anything else, right? Now, the leadership is kind of connected up there, and they move up. Now, the mayor, who has no secondary and tertiary look on anything, right, says you will not cooperate with INS, right? Immigration, INS, which changes to ICE, right? So we could not, by mayoral approval, we could not enforce a deportation warrant. So we would run these guys and they would have a deportation warrant, and then we're stuck. What do we do, right? But you don't want to do that. You want to enforce the law because you know these guys are bad guys. But if you enforce the law, you're going to get suspended. And guess what? When you get suspended, INS isn't going to come in and sue the mayor. The feds aren't going to come in and sue this mayor because they suspended your little butt. But the difference is the mayor could care less, you know. He'll eat free at a restaurant and everything. And for the next month, you're going to have to scrape together everything to feed your family. No one cares about that. So what do? You toe the line. You toe the line. You go, nope, nothing I can do about it. And then the crime runs and it makes your job worse. But who's doing that? Again, the politicians who can't see that there's a deportation warrant for this guy, not because he overstayed his student visa. Right? Not because she overstayed her marriage visa. She didn't get married or whatever. There's a deportation warrant for him because he was convicted of homicide in California. Right? And California could care less because he got deported once, but there's still a warrant to deport him. He comes back up to Chicago. What do you think he's going to do in Chicago? Going to commit another homicide. And then you were the one that let him go when you had the warrant. But that's the mayor. That's their policy. You don't have to. Here's the thing. In the military, you don't have to obey an illegal order, right? But your average 18-year-old can't tell what a legal and illegal order is. That's up to his command, right? If the colonel says something stupid, then it's up to the lieutenant colonel, it's up to the major, it's up to the captain, it's up to the lieutenant, then it's up to the sergeants below him to say, hey, wait a second, colonel, we can't do that. That's illegal. The private can't make that decision. So how does the patrolman, go and do his job? Well, he can't. He's handcuffed. He's got anxiety. If I don't do this job, who's to say this guy ain't going to come get a gun and come and hunt me down because I just let him go and I had a grab on him. Now he's afraid I'll grab him again or whatever, right? You just let a criminal go. Well, I did because I didn't want to get deported. I mean, every time you get a guy with a deportation warrant, the mayor should show up in person and give you a written statement, say, do not enforce, and hand it to you with a receipt, and a picture of that. So when this guy does something stupid, they could sue the mayor's butt. But hey, they find out you stopped this guy and he went on a mass killing. You're in trouble. They're not going to go after the mayor. Okay, we got a call.
Hello?
Hey, how you doing?
Hello? Hey, how you doing? Good, how you doing? Good, how you doing? How you doing?
We're getting a little bit of an echo through your radio.
Yeah, shut off your radio. Turn it down.
How about now?
Okay, we got you, Cleveland Dennis.
Nope, this is Patrick.
Patrick. Hey, Patrick.
Yes. Hey, I was listening to your show. It's pretty good.
Thank you.
I just want to say that, like, as far as the immigration and what Trump's doing with sending in the troops into Chicago, if you go to all the victims of the family that's been shot the last year alone and been murdered, if they would appreciate help from the federal government, I'm sure every family member would say yes.
That's why they're not interviewing them.
That's the only people that don't want it there are the people that keep letting these guys out of jail, which is the Democrats. And I'm not sure how the whole system became so involved in such a it got so bad, but it's been going on for 30 years. It's been bad immigration for 30 years.
I know.
But the thing is, like, there's nothing wrong.
Patrick, it's what's called a one-party system.
Oh, okay.
That's what caused that.
Patrick, this was when 1992. I pull over a guy, and he has got 7 Social Security cards with 7 different Social Security numbers in different names, and he's got 7 driver's licenses with his picture on them, with the Social Security cards and 7 different names.
If I did that, I would be in prison.
And I called the state's attorney for felony approval, and they're like, no.
Yeah, that's unfair to the people that are born here, because if we pulled it, see, our truck driver does that with the CDL. nowadays you go to prison for that stuff. So it's not fair for them to come in here and break all the laws. Yeah, there's not all of them are bad. A lot of them do good and are respectable people, and I totally understand that. But you know what? If they're illegal, you know what? Go back and do it the right way, and come through the process, because there's people all over the world that would love to come here, and they try to do it the right way. And I just think what Trump is doing is he's doing the right thing, and he's protecting us not only now but our future. Because if we don't put a stop to it now, what are grandchildren going to live with? They're going to live with more and more and more people just getting killed for no reason, So I'm 100% behind it.
Thank you,
You speak the truth, Patrick.
All right.
You're very welcome. You guys have a good day.
You too, Patrick. Thanks for calling.
All right. Yeah, see, I am for
common sense, Mike.
Common sense.
And Patrick got it. And we don't have common sense. And it's done for an ulterior purpose. And I'll come out and say it's done to perpetuate them and their one-party system. Doesn't matter what party it is. There's no voice to the contrary. And that's not what America is about. We respect all voices. And when you stamp out the other voices or the other belief, then we're not America. That's not what we're about.
Okay. So I'm all for legal immigration. When you have 20 million people that shouldn't be here, all right? It's kind of crowding up the entry-level jobs for younger guys, younger girls, all right? It's crowding out our schools. It's causing, you got to spend a lot of, you're spending money on kids that have a right to be educated because they're here. That's another Supreme Court thing. They have a right to be educated because they're here, all right, even though they're not legally here. But are they paying taxes to support the schools? No, everyone else is paying taxes. So taxes are higher because now I got to, instead of my community supplying a school for 1,000 kids, I've got to supply a school for 2,000 kids. Right? And some of them aren't. Now, you get rid of the 20 million there, and the doors are going to open for legal immigration. Right now, legal immigration is limited because it's crowded. So get rid of the illegals, bring the legals in. The difference is the people coming up here are all for not all of them, but they're coming up here to get what they can, all right, and give very little. The people coming in, trying to come in legally, are the other side of the spectrum. They're escaping that system. They're trying to escape that system. They're trying to come to a system where you could work for yourself, where you can make something of yourself and everything. And they're trying to do it the legal way. So when they get over here legally, you think they're going to ruin that and risk deportation by being criminals after spending. No. That's the main difference is one group wants to be taken care of. The other group wants to make something of themselves. I don't want to take care. I took care of my 3 kids, Some kid knocks on my door and needs to be fed. I'll feed the kid, right? But I'm not going out there taking care of everyone else's kid. That's their kid. Let them take care of it. That's that country's people. Venezuela dumped their criminals and crazies on us. Hey, it's great for us. Now we don't have to spend money on them because we sent them up to the United States, which is a weapon. It's a biological agent. You're sending a biological chaos agent against us. That's an act of war. Cuba emptied their prisons and their crazy hospitals over to us. All right? That was an act of war. All right? How have we responded to that? Nothing. Now we're responding. You're going to play those games with us. Watch what we do. You're being supported by drug cartels because your oil is being embargoed, right? And your socialism isn't working, so now you got to make money off illegal drugs. We'll sink your drug boats. Oh, no. Oh, look. Oh, yeah, no, it's an act of war. When you knowingly send dangerous people into another person's country, hey, Let's empty all of our supermax prisons, all right? Let's take them all, fly them down to Mexico City. Not that I got anything against the Mexicans or anything, right? Fly them down to Mexico City, kick them off the plane, and take off and leave. What do you think the Mexican police are going to do with those people?
Some of them, I would imagine, would be getting shot down there, but the others would be incarcerated, and it would not be going well for them.
They deport them. They try to get them back to the United States every way they could in seconds. Right. Dude, you're a U.S. citizen. You're crazy, and you're a murderer. We don't want you. Boop, they'd be back. Do you think they'd get due process?
No.
No, they'd have no right to it. We're the only country that awards that. Maybe Europe's doing it now. But here's the check. Like I said, if you punch the 17-year-old in the head and he says, hey, why'd you do that? That wasn't right. Do you think he knows that punching the old lady in the head was wrong?
Yes.
So if you send your criminals and crazies and everything down to their country and they scream that it's wrong, don't you think they know that it was wrong when they did it?
Yes.
See, that's the thing. That's what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
Correct.
When you get the one-party system, it's only what's good for me. It's called sociopathic.
Right.
All right? If it's good for me, it's good for me. If it's not good for me, it's bad. It's completely bad. It could be good for everyone else in the world, right? But it's bad because it doesn't help them out. And that I see all these countries are sociopathic. I see a lot of our politicians sociopathic. Is it good for me? Is it good for my party? Not what the country. Is it good for me and good for my party? These parties are sociopathic. Both of them. To what degree?
Right.
All right? And when you get down to it, you got members of the party that are complete sociopaths. I'm just going to stay here and stamp my feet till you give me everything I want, or I'll vote against you. Even though it's good for my constituents, I'm going to vote against you anyways. Because me. Then you got to deal with that. So maybe we got to, do you think equal protection under the law means that if you know it's wrong, then you shouldn't do it, right?
Correct.
What's the golden rule? Treat others like you want to be treated, right?
Right. 10 Commandments.
Well, love your neighbor as yourself, right?
That is correct.
The second greatest commandment there. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others. And the world would be a great place, right? But some people, they only do one thing, themselves.
Correct.
All right. So,
take care.
Come back next week for another Chief Guard of the Republic with the rants of Mike and Paul.
Have a great week.